Norton Charter Commission. All members except for Dave Heaney and Kevin Schleicher Jr. are present. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. If I could just ask if anybody other than Shane is taping this meeting this evening. Okay. Thank you. All right. Taking our agenda in order, we are very pleased to have our first member of the public. Mr. Val Stefanelli approached me at the Planning Board's Master Plan Discovery Workshop a couple of weeks ago, and then was kind enough to follow up with an email and expressed an interest in coming to speak with us. For those of you who don't know Mr. Stefanelli, I'll give you a little bit of his background. 30 years in service to the town, sat on the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, the Norton Housing Authority, and was a charter member of the Industrial Development Commission. We are very excited to have you here this evening. And with that, we'll turn the floor over to you. I did just want to remind you that at this point, we are in the information gathering and research portion of the process of the commission, and so we're very happy to hear
Well, thank you, Laura.
any ideas and thoughts you have.
I'll try to, I'm Ralph Stefanelli, 12 James Street, been in Norton 47 years, and married to the same lovely lady, Betty Jane, for 59 years. I'm one of those guys who are eagles. You mate for life. And I got lucky, okay? She is the calming effect on this rude Italian, if you will. But I'm not here to be rude tonight. I'd like to take you through a step-by-step program that I have. It'll be quick because Laura and I discussed the parameters that we want to work in, and we're going to stay positive. And the positivity is how important it is to have volunteers. And in your charter thought process, some of the things that you want to be looking for as possible volunteers. You're all adults. You know what to look for. You're not going to just pick somebody out of a hat. It's not a raffle. It's where the town is going. So with that in mind, I have a quota, I have a power phrase that I've always used in my entire career. It's called knowledge is power, and do your homework. That's how I've operated. I've owned 3 very successful businesses. I moved up here from Newark, New Jersey. I was in the sales side of printing, rotary presses. I moved to Cranston, Rhode Island. I'll do this for you, Cranston. I have to use that nose thing. Lived there for 10 years, but in the process of living there, we formed a company of 5, and we were in the rotary printing business. Very successful, 3 shifts. I was sales and marketing and advertising. I wore those hats. Who was the money people, who was in the plant. We gelled perfectly. A larger company came along, offered us an offer we couldn't refuse because they wanted to get into New England, and we sold out and walked away. But in the process, I had to sign a 5-year non-compete clause. So I got the heck out of Rhode Island. It didn't matter. They used the entire Eastern Seaboard for competing against them because that's how big they were. Came up here to Norton and couldn't afford Norwood. Didn't like Norwood. It was too compact. The closer I got to Boston, it was just it just didn't reach what I was looking for. So in the process, I ended up here in Norton. Now you folks are exactly where I was 25 years ago. Because when you see some of the things that I and the people who volunteered and who elected to be part of the town without any salary, we needed to make changes. There was very poor zoning. It was almost non-existent. The boards had the capacity to have people who had a vested interest for being on that board. Builders and contractors and real estate people. Whoa, where's your heart? We questioned it. At that time, I was a member of the JCs, the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and we said, no, if your heart's not 100% in the town to make decisions for the town and not get paid for it, then you shouldn't be on the board. Well, it was something to say, but it was another thing to get it done, just like you're doing. It's one thing to say, let's change the way we do business in Norton, and you're finding out very quickly it's not an easy task, and you haven't even brought it to the public. So my goal here tonight is to say, hey, look, people, you're out there. Don't be afraid to volunteer. Don't be afraid of Norton, because you'll never forget how to ride a bicycle. Never. So when you're exposed on the ZBA, when you're making these decisions for other people, your heart has to be in it. There can be no conflict of interest. And you're not being paid. It's not a fun job at times, especially if you're on more than one committee. At the present time, I'm on the Norton Housing Authority for the last 21 years. And we've accomplished many things for the residents in the community. We took a housing authority that was 40 years old. Margaret Heckler was the person who brought that to the town of Norton with government money. And 40 years later, because we were involved with it as newbies, it needed rehab. It was a money pit. All 8 buildings were built with contractors that were connected, and corners were cut, and windows didn't open and close, and you had nobody to go to. Being a member of the JCs, we took them to court. We weren't afraid of them. So you folks are in a prime position to invite volunteerism in the town. Take advantage of it, but don't create a cabal, because that's one of the things that you have to wear the blindfolds and look at the scales of justice as to who you're going to pick, why you're picking them. And if only one shows up, redo the job. Send it out again. Don't get stuck with one volunteer. Your town is 20,000 people. You can't raise 5 people, you got a problem. You can't get 7 people to compete. Look how lucky we were on the Serpent with Sandy. I'm older. I was involved with it for 17 years. We created a situation. Gave her 1 year of mentorship and then let her run on her own, and she got it. But she didn't go in cold. And she's a perfect example of someone who volunteered before for the bicycle path. And so she knew the inner workings of a very large community that spends money on you, the town. I'll go into that list in a moment. At the present time, how did I get involved? It was simple. When I moved here to Norton, there was no industrial park, nothing, and the taxes were brutal. Remember, you don't want to know how much I paid for my home. I don't want to make you fall off your chair. Okay, what it cost for a car, that's what I paid for my home. Put it that way. So you got an idea what it costs for a home today, and the taxes and property and all the good stuff that goes with owning a home. The very first thing that I did, along with another person who you may not have met, and he was a selectman, Butch Rich, a tiger by the tail. You either liked him or you didn't like him. There was no middle road. But when he said he was going to do something, it got done. His dad was a selectman. When I moved here, the first thing I said was, we need some tax relief. Where are you going to get it, Ralph? How about Taunton has just grabbed the Devers property. Senator Pacheco grabbed most of it, but we have a chunk of it in Norton. Let's start the ball rolling with Dan Martin, the town planner, and Senator Pacheco, and put our bid in. Not verbally, knock on his door in Boston. Hey, you just gave away 7/8 of Devers property that was in your town for nickels on the dollar. We want our share that's in Norton. So while you're in the process, change the name Taunton to Ralph, to Norton, for our piece of the pie. And we got it. And that's why you have an industrial park. It just took the courage of a group of people with an idea to move it forward and get it done. Do your homework, find out what it's going to do, and move it along. We have invested in the Norton Housing Authority over 17 years as commissioners, $9.1 million that it doesn't cost you one nickel on your Norton property taxes. Notice I put it out there. It's not state. Yeah, that's a different animal. Not federal. That's a different animal. $9.1 million came into the town to rehab the entire housing authority. Then there was another problem that cropped up. Sewerage. Bad word right now as it stands. I'm lucky I don't have brown water. But we recognized the problem with the housing authority. And we said our leaching fields are destroyed because they were built 40 years ago with cheap money. There was no oversight. So we brought it to the attention and said to the water department, let's collaborate. I love that word, because when it happens, you get a whole new synergy of ideas. And isn't that what you're doing? You're doing what we did 25 years ago, and we knocked some people off doing it. We knocked off the builders and the contractors, and there are people in this room who know what I'm talking about. They're gone. And the reason we picked was an easy one. They were on the board because of the health insurance. That was brought out at one of your meetings. When we found that out, they didn't have a real vested interest in the town. They were builders, they were contractors, they were plumbers, they were whatever. So we said at a town meeting, let's vote them out. Let's vote out the $100 stipend so that they don't get the insurance package. You want to be able to walk around with a target on your back? Try doing it and getting away with it. We did it. It was wrong. It was simple. It was wrong. New people started to come out of the woodwork, just like we hear, coming out of the woodwork and saying, we need this, we need that. Excuse me. So we bring to the town meeting on a warrant to get a community senior center. In the process, we work with the town department, we work with the water department, our town manager, Michael Units, the town's attorneys, the state's attorneys, housing authority, the state's attorneys, and the housing authority attorneys from the Fed level, HUD. And we said there's $1 million sitting on the shelf for engineering, and we would like to combine that money and not let it go back into their general fund, because we need sewerage. And it was an idea. That's all it was. But we pushed it through. And we were able to prevent the business owners from having to shell out 6, 10 grand, depending on the distance of their business to the sewer line. We also had problems in the town itself. The capacity of Wheaton College, they didn't want a waste treatment plant. So we negotiated with them on the town side, not my side. And they said, we're not going to let you rebuild, and they didn't want it because of the smell. They're in a growth mode, and they didn't want their kids coming in here smelling sewerage. And that's what happens when you have a waste treatment plant for a limited amount of people. By putting it together, we were able to put a shovel in the ground. So we were able to take Fed HUD money, bring it to Norton, eliminate that big nut that was there for the business owner and the people who lived on the way to that sewerage line with their hookups, and saved them a bundle of money. It was just thinking outside the box. That's all it was. And that's what you get with volunteerism. Your work, where you work, you may be a computer technician, and you can bring things to the table that we never had. We never had that smartphone. We used to walk around with a roll of quarters to contact people with your finger and a dial. Times have changed. Norton has grown. So we wanted to keep the businesses in Norton. And by having that money reverted that was sitting in a shoebox at HUD, we grabbed it. And it was a collaboration of all the attorneys and Mike and the water department and a pot of coffee and the door closed, and we hashed it out. And we got it done. Volunteers, elected people. Now, I'm an elected official on the Housing Authority. Well, how did you get on the Housing Authority? I have been appointed by 3 different governors for 5-year positions on the Housing Authority in Norton. I had to clear all their vetting and vetted inquiries and all that good stuff. 3 different governors appointed me to the Housing Department. And with that kind of a paddle, if you will, or to get someone's attention, we were able to rebuild the Housing Authority to where it is today. And to this date, as we speak here, we've included up to $9.1 million into the Norton Housing Authority. Now, here's the caveat. We hook up the sewerage. We took care of the high school and the flooding of its fields. There was a collaboration between Beata and us. He sat in on our meetings. Moved that aside, and we said, now what are we going to do? With the present leaching fields that we have, they were failing. And when they get excavated clean, we then found out that there was an additional $300,000 provided by the state, and only 10 towns and cities would be asked, or a little bit more than I think, for a $25,000 grant to do the engineering study. And here we are sitting, when that sewerage is hooked up, they're going to excavate the sewerage in the ground, remove it, take it to some coal mine in West Virginia, I don't know where it's done, and we're already planning for future housing on an engineering level on town-owned property. Do I get an applause for that? Do we get an applause? I hope so, in your thinking, because we're thinking outside the box, and everyone is part of the collaboration. So as you make these decisions that you're going to be making, please keep the entire town, and I'm sure you're doing that, in your sights. Have tunnel vision for somebody like me sitting here. I'm not going to tell you my age, but you can do the math. I'm not a youngster. and be thinking about that spread. You got 20,000, 35% of them are elders and growing. The boomers, they're out there. So be thinking along those lines as you put this whole thing together. I want to thank you, but more than that, I want to take this one opportunity for 1 minute more, if I may, Laura.
Please.
I'm going dry. There are guides and books out there that if you know about them, it will make your job easier. Knowledge is power. The Pioneer Institute is a Massachusetts nonprofit. Google it. You'll get a book like this, and the title of the book is A Guide to Sound Fiscal Management for Municipalities. And that's what you're trying to do here with your thought process. This book is your roadmap to how to get it done. Oh, you can go look at other towns, but you're not a Newton. You're not a Brookline. You're not Cambridge. You're Norton, who from a town meeting is thinking about going to a different set of rules. And maybe they're good and maybe they're not. But that'll be determined at the ballot box. We're dealing with what we call slow growth, another book put out by HUD, America's Housing Future. And I'm going to show you what happens, if I may. It's important. When Wheaton College built their gymnasium, and I was on the planning board, they wanted to go 48 feet up. That's a lot of air because the gym was high, and it went to the ZBA. And they got approval with the permit. Now forever, the height restrictions is 48 feet. That's why you got affordable housing on 123. They're at 47 and a half feet high. So you got to be careful what the future holds. And that comes with a collaboration of volunteers, people who might be in the financial business like I was and still am, people like me who owned an auctioneering company, people like me who worked for 10 years as a manager of the jewelry industry. Again, I'm kind of giving you a little way to chip away at how old I am, but I'm not going to tell you. It's that knowledge that's back there that I want to bring forth to you to grasp onto. Don't stand at the edge ready to jump. Step back and say, who can I jump with? Because maybe you won't jump at all. Because that collaboration will be of good people who have their hearts and their minds set on the growth of Norton, and they might end up giving you a verbal fight. But so what? Everybody wins. It's got to be a win-win. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you on this informal basis. And I appreciate it. And I hope the people that are home think about coming forward and saying, I'd like to be on the rec department. I'd like to be a part of. I'd like to be part of. I'd like to do, yeah. Because the rewards are here. They're not here. They're here. And if you've got that, you got it made. Good luck in what you're doing. Can't wait to have a combat back and forth because you guys have a hell of a job ahead of you. Thanks again. It's appreciated the time you gave me.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. We appreciate you coming in to visit.
And I scared you with all this stuff, right? No, I wasn't going
a little bit. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Laura, for having me.
Ralph?
Peter, what? Pardon me?
I'm doing it today.
Say again? Oh, don't, Peter, I've always liked you.
Yep.
I'm not going to stop.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
so much.
Do we have anybody else from the public who would like to speak this evening? Peter? You're good?
Go.
Great.
You gave me my kudos.
All right. We are going to move on, if we could, to our first interview, and we're going to meet with the Canoe River Aquifer Advisory Commission, and I understand we have one representative from that commission. Linda, if you'd like to come on up and speak with us, that would be great.
Oh, you're better off and more comfortable here.
Whichever you,
Like
if you
looking
want to
in
sit in a
the
comfy
eye.
chair, you're more than welcome to sit here, or
Here,
you
where
can
would
sit
like
at
to
these
sit?
chair.
Here, Try this. Come on, I'll even be a gentleman.
It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Got it? Good. Good evening.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, so I am Linda Collett, and I'm a member of the Canoe River Aquifer Advisory Committee, which has the somewhat unfortunate acronym of the CRAC Committee.
Oops.
They are a crack. Doesn't necessarily.
So this is, I have a list of things that Sandy sent me that you might be interested in from me. So let me just say a couple of things. I'm a PhD biologist, but full disclosure, my area of expertise is not environmental biology. I have been on Norton Land Preservation for many, many years, and so I was elected to CRAC from Norton Land Preservation, which is something I want to come around to talking about in a minute. But let me tell you a little bit about the Canoe River Aquifer Committee. This is a committee that was established by the state in 1987 to overlook the Canoe River Aquifer. The Canoe River is about a 16-mile river. It goes through 5 towns: Easton, Foxborough, Mansfield, Norton, and Sharon. And in these towns, about 50% of the population receive their drinking water from this aquifer. The rest of the population, the drinking water, obviously comes from other sources. It's also located within the Taunton River watershed, so there's a much bigger watershed that encompasses the Canoe River Aquifer. One of the things that this committee was able to do through a lot of hard work was to get the Canoe River Aquifer designated as a sole source aquifer. And basically that means that, as I said, about 50% of the water consumed in the area comes from this aquifer, and, importantly, there are no alternative sources of water that could be legally, physically, or economically used to provide water if there's a problem with this aquifer. So one of the things that is very, very important to us on the committee is to try to find ways to educate people about the seriousness of protecting this aquifer. They also managed to get the area designated as an area of critical environmental concern. And this is a designation from the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. So with these 2 designations, any kinds of activities that are planned for over the aquifer have to meet very strict environmental guidelines. So these were some really big accomplishments of this committee. And I have to say that the heart and soul of the committee, a wonderful man who had been the head of the Department of Public Works in Mansfield, I hope I have the right town. His name is Wayne Southworth. Easton, sorry, thank you, Peter. Peter comes to all the meetings.
Yep.
He was really the main driving force for this committee, and sadly for us, he retired a few years ago. And so we have a new chair, Aaron Roth, a biologist, and so the main thing that I'm going to convey about what the committee is doing right now is we're actually looking for a project. Because in truth, when Wayne retired, he had completed most of the goals of the established committee. And so we're moving in the direction of becoming an education source for people. And I'm hoping that we will move strongly in that direction. We're already working on greenway projects and have already some mapping and some aerial views of the land, but many of us are very, very concerned that many people are pretty clueless about their water source. Now, I know if you're from Norton, you know what color it comes out of the tap. But there's so many issues about the sources of that water that people need to be aware of, and so many pieces of misinformation that are flying around. So we're hoping that as we move forward, that's going to become one of our main projects. Now, in terms of the kinds of things Sandy asked me, that's pretty much what the board does. So we meet once every other month. We move around from town to town. So we get a good view of what kinds of public buildings those 5 towns have. So that's been an interesting experience for me. In terms of how the members are chosen for the board, so this is somewhat of a mystery to me. As I said to you, I was chosen because I was on land preservation. And for a long time, Norton was represented by Jen Carlino and 2 people from land preservation. How that got started, I don't know. I don't know what the history of that is. But I will tell you that all of the other towns have as their representatives people who work for their water departments. And so it's an interesting committee to be on for a person like me. They speak in acronyms. They talk about valves and flushing and things like that that I don't know very much about. And until a couple of years ago, Norton did not have a representative from the water department. Now, 2 years ago, the state said there had to be a representative from the water department on that committee. And so at that time, Bernie Marshall came to the meetings. Now, I know he has since left. I don't know if there is a permanent replacement yet, but one of the things that we have to address with the town manager is that neither Bernie nor one of the members who passed away have been replaced. And so I am actually the only representative from Norton on that committee right now. Hopefully there will be 2 more, one at least from the water department in the near future. I do notice that this committee is not listed on the Norton website as one of the town committees, although I do have to take the famous test every however many years it is about conflict of interest, and I am appointed by the town, but we aren't recognized on the town website, so I will say that there's not a lot of official recognition for this committee. Probably the most important thing from our perspective is that if the town is planning things that are going to involve the aquifer, it would be really nice if we could open up a method of communication that we could find out about that directly. And I would just say case in point, and this is literally from just reading Facebook, and I know nothing more about it than what I saw on Facebook, but I know that there's some issue now involving changing the guidelines to allow Cumberland Farms to come in downtown Norton, and I know that it's lifting certain restrictions, and that those restrictions will be lifted for the entire town, which includes over this aquifer. So I'm only here to say that it would be very, very nice if that is in fact something the town is discussing, if we had some sort of conduit that would bring that to the Canoe River Advisory Committee. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. It's an interesting committee to be on. They've done a lot of good work. And I hope that in the future we're going to have a pretty solid educational piece on our website, which we don't have yet. So we're hoping first for the website. I will say we had a Facebook page, but the person who maintained it was sent to Iran. He was gone for 3 years. Nobody had the password. Nobody knew how to get into it. And so it was kind of stagnant. But he's back now. So we know that we're lacking in some of the public communication components of what we do. So anyway, I think, does that cover anything you might want to know about crack?
No. That was very helpful, Linda. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so it's a Board of Selectmen appointed committee. Mm-hmm. It has 3 members, of which there are currently 1. Do you think 3 members is sufficient for Board of the
Well, there are 3 members.
Scope?
There are 15 members altogether.
Okay, so there are 3 from each town.
Right.
Got
yeah.
it.
And
okay.
It would be, in my opinion, it would be very, very helpful if there were some people on the committee who had some actual information about water.
Okay.
I can be supportive of things that people say about water, and I know some things about it, but I definitely think, well, and also legally, we need to have someone from the water department. But we may have been, I don't know what the procedure is for alerting anyone to the fact that there are those openings. So that may simply be a problem from our end.
If you send a letter to the Board of Selectmen, they'll make an announcement in their public meeting, and they will, actively seek out potential folks who may be interested, especially if you've got an interest in, or a requirement to have somebody from the Water Commission, they may be able to approach them on your behalf and see if they have an interest in sitting on your committee.
Okay, and if they don't have an interest, I don't know what that means because it's against the law.
Yes.
Is crack state mandated? You said that they were established by the state in
It was
1987?
established by the state, but I don't think it was mandated by the state. A group of interested people took a look at this aquifer, said this is a really important resource. It goes through 5 towns. They got together, organized, went to the state, and got state recognition for what they've done. So this is a committee that has never had a budget, and they have really accomplished quite a lot in terms of state recognition and in terms of being designated those 2 categories that I mentioned. They just do it all voluntarily, yeah. So it's not that the state established it. The state just made it official when they applied
Okay, I
for it.
misunderstood that.
Yeah.
And then, by law, you need to have 3?
There was a law passed in 1916 that said on the board, you have to have a member of the water department. Now, I don't know who oversees that law, but anyhow, that was made a requirement of the board.
By the state?
Yeah, I think so. I have
Just curious.
if I brought that piece along. Yeah, there was an amendment made to the original declaration for the committee that, well, so I don't know if that makes it a law, but it's an amendment to the declaration for the establishment of the committee that 1 member from each town at least has to be from the water department. So, and, obviously, I would think it would be in Norton's best interest to have someone from the water department, so we're supportive of that. It was also extremely helpful to have someone from conservation. And in truth, I asked why there were 2 members of land preservation on the committee. I don't know if this should be public or not, but I was told that probably nobody else wanted to be on the committee. So, I mean, we've done our best, but I think that Norton could have a stronger representation if they had some people who were more professional in the area.
Do the other towns have stronger representation?
Yes, it's almost all water department people.
Okay.
That's why I said that most of the conversations involve flushing, valves, things like that, yeah. So, and they're very, very helpful. They're very willing to explain to me what they're talking about. They have very strong opinions about filtration systems and cleaning pipes and things like that. They're not quite, I think it needs to be a mix. I don't think it needs to be a water department board because I think it's also important to have people who think that outreach to the general public is important. And of course, their main concern is keeping their town's water supplies clean and healthy. They're terrific guys. They are all men. I'm one of the few women on the board. And my main interest is getting information out there for education, primarily for adults. In the past, most of their education has been things, which I think are great, like poster contests for kids. And I think it's great to tell kids about water, but I think it's even more important if we could get adults to understand about water as a limited resource. So that's why I stay on the committee, trying to push that. Any other? I mean, I don't really see that we have all that much connection with the town, you know what I mean, in terms of you and your town government. The main thing we just need is to have a conduit with the town so that we're included in conversations that might impact the aquifer, rather than hearing about it
Were
secondhand.
you more included when Bernie was on there? Did he help to serve as that conduit at all, or not really?
Let's see, well, I probably was, so Bernie wasn't on for a very long time. I think I was at a few meetings where Bernie was there, and he was very, very helpful at explaining basically what the town was trying to do in terms of the current water issues. Yeah, it was really helpful to have someone there from the town. So that was really good. And then when Jen Carlino was on, it was excellent, because she, of course, has a lot of grant writing skills and has a lot of, but she's so busy that made it very difficult for her, so.
So she stepped down.
She stepped down because she was just overwhelmed with projects she had as head of conservation, and we were very, very sad, because she was a very, very strong member of the committee. So, there you have it. The other person who was on the committee was my very good friend Frances Shirley, who's a wonderful person, and she's a Shakespeare professor. So you can see that we had broad representation from Norton. So,
And I'm sorry, Ms. Shirley is,
she's the one who passed away.
she is, okay. Any other questions for Ms. Collett?
I just had probably a stupid question, but I'm just curious. What is the difference between aquifer and a watershed?
So the watershed is basically the general area around the water source, but the aquifer is actually supplied by the water source. So there's probably some overlap in that, but it is the Canoe River itself that's providing the water that's filling the aquifer.
Gotcha. But that speaks to a lack of knowledge, I guess.
Well, no, but that's my best guess. You know, I'm going to go look it up on the web, and I may find out that.
Conservation Commission is clearly laughing at you right now.
Peter, look it up. So,
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Just getting into, you've given us a lot of information, a lot of things to think about, and we appreciate you bringing those to our attention. Thinking about town government specifically, you've given us a few ideas of things that we definitely, should be doing. Is there anything relating to town government that you think we should be doing or not doing or continue to do?
me personally,
Yes.
not me as a member of CRAC.
It's kind of one and the same.
Yeah. Either one.
Well, I've lived in Norton since 1980. It's the only place I've ever lived that has had town meeting. I can see pluses and minuses of it, mostly minuses. My jaded view of it is government by special interest, but maybe all government is government by special interest, and maybe that can't be avoided. I think it's a nice idea to have town meeting, and I'll include myself in this. I think most people who come to town meeting are not particularly well informed, but they think they have a right to question boards that have been working on things for long periods of time, and they do have a right to question it. I agree with that, but I find that really frustrating. So if you can find some nice compromise where people feel like they're being heard, but maybe we don't have to sit through hours and hours of town meeting, I would be a happier citizen of Norton. But believe me, that's not a CRAC opinion, that's just a Linda Collett, oh my gosh, did I really say that in public opinion?
No,
So-
I totally understand. We appreciate it. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you,
You're very
thanks for
helpful.
having me here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's probably the committee I'm on that I have the least information about.
Okay. Next up, we have, who's here from the Council on Aging? Hi. Come on up and play with us.
How's everybody today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay, and I'm sorry, if you don't mind, just when you get to the microphone, if you could just repeat your names for me?
Mary Ann Dempsey, chairperson of the COA.
Sharon Stedman.
We've seen you before.
Everybody knows you.
How are you this evening?
Well, thank you.
Okay, so the Council on Aging is Board of Selectmen appointed. They have 9 members presently, if I'm not mistaken. I think you might actually have some alternates now?
2 alternates.
2 alternates. Okay. If you don't mind, if you could just give us a brief introduction, give us your tenures on the council specifically, and then just a outline of the role of the council.
Okay. I've been the chairperson, it's very, very quick, it's only been a few months, I believe it has, okay? So this is all still very new to me, this whole thing, okay, but I'm learning. I started at the senior center when my last child graduated, and I had time, extra time, because I wasn't running to the sports, the baseball fields all over the world. So I had time, and I thought about what will I do with some extra time. So I thought about it, and I decided, I'd go to the senior center, see if maybe they needed some volunteers. And they did, and I ended up there the next day. Then all of a sudden, before I knew it, I was a board member. I'm not sure how that happened, it just happened. Then all of a sudden, I woke up and I became the chairperson, and I'm not sure how that really all happened. I was asked to be it, and I said, I guess so, because I work full-time, and I explained that I can't commit, 110%, but that was okay. They said, this is all you have to do. And I said, okay. So I've been in Norton for 30 years, originally from Boston, good old Boston, but I've been in Norton for 30 years, raised my boys here, they've gone to school here, my husband and I love it here, and I will tell you, the senior center, I love being there, okay? I never knew what it was like inside. I actually, in all the years I've been here, didn't know that was the senior center. And I drive by it every day, like we all do. I just didn't know what it was. I thought it was a little schoolhouse or just something cute. So then I went and I volunteered there, and nobody said anything to me, but I just looked around and I thought, like, ooh, it's kind of a little small, tight, and we all know that. I'm not even going to go into that. We all know about all that kind of stuff. All right, but I am excited about one day having a new center. And I think one of the things also that one of my things are, in the rules, the bylaws, all of those types of things, it's all about, it says everything about, seniors, seniors, seniors. And that's fine, but I think that maybe that they should be changed somewhat to let people, because as we know, a lot of people in town are non-senior. A young 20-year-old mother, a 40-year-old mother, or what have you, don't realize what the services they can get there. They have no idea. But if they have something to read, to know that the senior center offers to young mothers, to young families, to whomever, someone who lost a spouse, doesn't have to be a senior, and that's what everybody seems to think. We need somebody, some in the politics here to get out to these people to let them know that, okay? That's
Yeah, I think it's the human services end of it that isn't as visible as the senior center.
And that's very huge there, very, very big, believe it or not. It's a lot. And I think it's great that Beth has an assistant now, part-time, because she certainly needs that. When I'm there on a Thursday volunteering, people are constantly coming in. I mean, we have our seniors there that are there for the day, but there's people are constantly coming in. We're giving out bundles of food. We have people coming with big baskets up. It's just crazy. It's crazy. So that's great that she has that. We would like to see more of our members, more board members. We'd like to have more. We were talking about that it would be nice to maybe have some more. We get to the point sometimes where, people go away for the winter, or it's, they can't be here, and I get it and everything. But I think that maybe if we had a few more that we could maybe get that could be, more reasonable, I'm not going to say responsible, but to be there more often, for us.
Do you mean in general, or do you mean you would like to increase the size of your board from 9 to, let's say, 11 or 13?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just ask in regards to the alternates? I am assuming if not all members are present, can your alternates vote?
Yes.
Okay. Ideally, do you have an idea of what number you'd like?
I was thinking maybe 2 more. We're talking about 2 or 3 more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to have an odd number.
So 11 with 2 alternates?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, continue.
That's okay. One of the other things that we'd like to see, this might sound kind of stupid, but anyway, we thought that on occasion, perhaps maybe we could have a selectman or a select woman join our meetings. That's just for information. that they will get from us when we have our meetings. Maybe they have something they can input at our meetings for us as well.
And how often do you meet?
Once a month, every second Thursday of the month. So this would be something I would say probably maybe every quarter, perhaps maybe,
Yeah.
having somebody there.
Yeah, or not even necessarily.
Not every quarter,
At the,
twice.
well, even at the meetings, but, and I think this goes for all committees, is having a selectman who would be the liaison for particular committees, for each committee. So if you had an issue, you would have a particular person to contact, and they would be the ones most familiar with your committee.
Isn't it 2 years, you know?
One of the.
Go ahead.
Having a limit on terms, in terms of how long someone can be on the actual committee, because sometimes people get very vested
Yep.
in it, and they don't necessarily want to step down, but maybe aren't participating as much.
I see.
You know, it kind of gets old. We do have that, I don't know what it's called, but like emeritus or something where you become, but you're a non-voting member, but I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I would like to see even an increased number.
Okay.
Or to have some kind of turnover. I don't know.
Absolutely.
That was my thought. And that even comes from, I believe, like the state guidelines for Council on Aging.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. I think it was in those notes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you this packet if you would like. These are all of our different documents, our bylaws and stuff from the senior center. I just thought that maybe, I wasn't sure how many people were going to be here today, so I made one full copy, and I thought
Okay.
perhaps you can just, you know,
Great.
give it out to each other, but you could look at it and, you know.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So, I mean, as far as anything else, I mean, we don't ask for too much, you know, at the senior center. We just ask for a new building, that's about it. But I said I'm not going to do that. Do you have any questions for us? Anything that
I
you
do.
want to
If-
ask out of us?
Yeah, you've actually offered a number of great ideas at this point, so thank you. Any comments or thoughts on the way the council works with department staff, with Beth?
As far, when you say the staff, you mean, we're referring to,
To Beth specifically,
right, when you say the
Or
staff, that the.
within her department,
The
yes.
volunteers?
No, I'm talking more of your town departmental staff.
So just Beth.
Just-
Just Beth,
Just Beth.
because we haven't worked with the new person.
Oh, the secretary, yeah. Well, I've met her, so see, she's starting actually this week, I believe.
Okay.
But as far as working with Beth or anything, she's a doll. She's a prize. She's superwoman.
Okay.
God bless her.
Are you comfortable with the way she is appointed or hired?
The way she was appointed her?
Yes,
Well-
so she is a, if I'm not mistaken, town manager appointment.
Yes.
And there have been some boards and commissions and folks that we have researched and talked to where they have some control over that position.
Mhm.
Is that something you would have an interest in?
What are your thoughts on that?
I
mean-
don't think it would be, well, I think it should be a town manager appointed position, but I do think there should be
Other people talking before it's decided, right?
representatives from
Right.
the Council on Aging, be it one or two people involved.
Are you comfortable, or I guess, what are your thoughts on the level of guidance or support that you receive from the town overall?
Oh, it's very good, actually. It's no problems. I mean, when I call Mike, or I meet with Mike when I have any concerns or questions, or just need to know something, he's great in clarifying it. Some of the select people I have, you know, just inquired, asked some questions, but I've never had a problem. When I need something, I call or email or what have you, and everybody gets back to me.
Okay, great. Do you have access to everything you need, keeping in mind we know where the situation with the building stands? Everything that you need as a board to function properly?
Yes.
Do you work with any other council on agings from any other towns? Do you meet with them?
No,
No cross-referencing?
no.
Okay. Are you aware of any changes in changes in regulations or any trends that you're aware of that could potentially impact the board's function going forward?
No, not that I can recall. What about you?
I mean, there's an ever-growing population of seniors, so
Yeah.
we always seem to, we'll need to make sure that everyone is provided for, what our current building unfortunately does not, but I mean, that's, been spoken of too much. But I think that's something we have to really look at, is being able to accommodate those people, whether it be in that building or
Right, we can accommodate.
Somewhere else.
We can accommodate everybody now, okay, but when I say that also, when we have functions there, we can only have so many people in there, so there are times, yes, we cannot accommodate every senior that wants to come to a function, and that kind of stinks, but there's nothing you can do about it. We know that one day it'll change, so that's that. So as far as accommodations at the center, there's really not much that can really be done or even said, obviously, right now, until something's determined down the road.
Okay. As it relates to how our town government operates, what are some things that you think we should start doing or possibly stop doing? Things that you want us to continue doing?
I feel like Linda, where did Linda go? You mean that has to do with the COA in general, like,
Could be either, or as a resident, because if.
or as a resident?
Or as
Yes.
a resident, yeah.
Well, I shouldn't be talking about that right now as a resident. I don't really have too much, to be honest with you, to say on that. That is probably something that I would actually love to have as a personal, private meeting,
Okay.
perhaps one day,
Okay,
as a resident,
okay.
okay? Do you,
Is that something you would like to come to us?
Yes.
We offer a public forum.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
let me just make it available to you. You were here during Mr. Stefanelli's discussion. That is open. We have space allotted on every single agenda. You were the first one on the agenda as a member of the public, and we encourage and welcome anybody who wants to come and talk to us. If you prefer to do that on a personal level as opposed to representing the Council on Aging, we are more than happy to entertain that.
because I'd prefer to do that because I don't want to get attacked or anything. It's nothing personal. We all live in town here, we all know what it's like, we all know if you don't agree with this one, well, then you're that, and if you agree with that one, then you're this. And I just like to be able to speak how I feel as a resident of 30 years here, that's all.
Okay.
But I like that to be behind closed doors. It's just not something I
Yeah,
need
they're
to...
talking about.
Well, you need to keep in mind, if you come here, it is not behind closed
Oh, no,
doors.
I know,
Okay.
I mean in front of like other boards and stuff like that.
Okay,
You know,
that's
with
fine.
just-
Yeah,
so
if
do
it is
you
something that,
Have anything you want to say
And
about
we
that?
also accept email as
yeah, I was going
well.
to say, if it's
you
something
didn't
that you
wanna-
do not want to be in
Oh,
during
okay.
open meeting, I'm going to follow up with you with a thank you email, and you can feel free, or you can also go to the Norton Town webpage for the Charter Commission, my email is on there. But you can follow up directly with us via email if you'd prefer it to be in a private manner.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay? So whatever you're more comfortable with, but honestly, we'd love to have you in a public capacity as well, if you're comfortable with that.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to
No,
speak
I
about
had
that?
already done it at another.
Was there anything we didn't ask you about that you'd like to discuss?
No, we went over our things here. Is there anything that you can think of?
No, I don't.
Can I
No.
ask one question?
Yes, absolutely, please.
I just want to backtrack to the 9 on the committee, but you guys would benefit more from having 11 and 2 alternates. Is that because you, if I was hearing correctly, is that because people aren't showing up to your meetings and they're not doing what they're
Correct.
supposed to?
You get people that, would go away for the season,
For the winter?
vacations. I get it, for the winter.
Okay.
Sicknesses, there's,
Injuries, there's.
right, there's this,
Tends to, I think, be.
I don't
with-
think we've ever had a meeting where we've had, everybody was there. And I believe on several occasions, we've had to use the alternates to vote,
Okay.
because I can't vote, so we,
Right.
Does your do you have any guidelines or anything in terms of, how many meetings a person can miss or anything like
actually, yes,
that?
it's in this packet
is,
that I'm going to
okay.
be given to you as well.
Okay,
So you'll see all that.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes.
It's actually not really a question, but just, and anybody here can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you talk about changing the size of the board, I believe that's all laid out in the bylaws, not the charter. So I know, I just want to make sure we're not over-promising here.
Right, it's in
I don't
here,
think
and
we're
it states
promising
all that.
Oh, no, I'm not saying over-promising, but.
We're information gathering.
But, no, I understand that, but
Right, they're in
Like a lot
here,
of these things.
the rules and everything, it's in there, it states how many, so forth. And
Yeah.
obviously, it's something, if it was to ever change, right, it just can't be changed by changing a piece of paper. Has to be changed by, of course, the town hall
I
government.
think it depends on specifically what board it is, where it
yeah,
gets
I'm
changed.
just saying, I don't think.
Because Parks and Recs, the Board of Selectmen just made a decision, and they opened it up to,
Yeah.
forget how many.
Yeah.
I don't know what the bylaw says, but.
Yeah, we'd have to,
Yeah, I was just saying that the charter, I don't believe specifies the size of the board.
we're happy to look that up and provide some guidance if we can.
Okay,
Any other questions?
anything else, or you good?
No, I
Anything
was
else?
just going to say it was one of the questions that we were asked to answer.
Bring forward.
Yeah.
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 We didn't just kind of pull it
No,
out
no,
of the air. and-
We actually read the email, we read
Yes.
the email.
We tried to answer what we could.
All right, thank you very much for your
you.
time.
Thank you very much, we appreciate it. I'm going to leave this little packet over here, and that was our few questions, too, on the front.
Okay. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Have a great night, everybody.
You as well.
You too, thank you.
Sandy, do you want to scan this and we can upload it to
Dropbox?
Dropbox? Sure. Okay, you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?
That's fine, you can do it.
All right, next up, we have the school committee. Hi there.
Hello.
How are you?
Great. So I'm Kathleen Stern. I'm chair of the school committee. We are actually spread out multiple meetings tonight, so I'm what you got.
We appreciate it, yeah.
We are a 5-member board, which I think works perfectly with the 5 schools. Up until this year, we all not picked a school, but we're assigned a school, which we try to go to the parent board meetings. We try to have meetings with the principals. This year, we're doing things a little bit differently, just because over the last couple years, because of, I'll call it transparency problems or lack of communication or questions about are people being forthcoming, we have now started to go to selectmen meetings, FinCom meetings, even some planning board meetings, especially with the solar panels going in at the LG North, conservation committees because of that. So what we have done this year is, instead of having a liaison to each school, I met with each principal over the summer to find out what their goals are, what their challenges are, and then I'm meeting with each one of the parent boards. I'm giving them a couple months to get started and it gets settled, because a lot of them have a lot of people that need to be placed on boards. The reason why we do that, and the reason why I was really adamant about keeping it going, is because last year I was on the LG North board liaison, and they were going to pay for swings because their swings were broken. I said, that's our job. That's not a parent board job. So I think it's important to keep a communication with the parent boards. We've also asked them to come to our meeting, so that's a little bit of a change. But as far as the 5 members, I think the way we work so well together is one person is very intuitive into town politics, that type of thing. One is a complete townie, born and bred here. One is a finance finance person. I've been a substitute teacher for 16 years now, so I understand what the teachers and the students need. And we also have a professor who is really involved with SEL right now, social and emotional learning, which is our hot button this year. And unfortunately, it's where any extra money that has come through with school choice or anything like that is going all to technology and social emotional learning. At any given day, we have ambulances going to our schools for meltdowns and just kids who are just having a really, really tough time. And it's easy to say, well, you don't really need a computer, or we didn't need one when we went to school. But if you really think about it, in 10 years, in 2007, the big companies were ExxonMobil, General Electric, Microsoft, Citicorp, and Bank of America. Within 10 years, 2017, and it's already changed since then, it's now Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook. So if you don't know how to use a computer, or if you're not tech savvy, or if you can't speak the lingo or come up with those free-forming ideas, it's not the job force that we all went into when we graduated college, or high school for that matter. I think what my other questions were. We don't have any alternates, so it's the 5 members. We are all elected. We have a 3-year term, so it's 2 people for one election, 2 people for another, and then 1 person runs on their own. I have been on for 3 years, and in April just got elected to my second, 3rd-year term. How do we work with the staff? I think we work very well. I go to the conference every November down on the Cape, and it's astonishing to me how many school committee members don't get along with either their superintendent or their school board at all. They're talking about 3- and 4-hour meetings, and it sounds more about people just wanting to hear themselves talk as opposed to getting anything done. Our meetings are generally an hour and a half. We have an agenda, we stick to it. It seems to go pretty smoothly, and I think we do a pretty good job with things.
How often do you meet?
We meet every other week. There are occasions when, if there's nothing on or whatever, we might all vote to cancel a meeting, usually in December. Actually, we're moving one in November because it does fall on the conference, and both Dr. Byetta and myself will be at the conference, so we're moving that one.
One of the things, if you don't mind, if I just
sure.
wanted to point out, is typically we would ask them questions specifically related to their department head and how that's appointed, and their working relationship with the department, and their feelings with regards to the level of autonomy that they have, or they're provided by the town. It's important to note that they're the only board that appoints its own department head, and it's also important to note that that level of autonomy is not granted by the charter or by the bylaw. It is set by the state law, and that's under Chapter 71, Section 37. And I'm just going to read a brief part of that, just strictly for the record. The school committee in each town, in each city and town, in each regional district shall have the power to select and terminate the superintendent, shall review and approve budgets for public education in its district, and shall establish educational goals and policies for the schools in the district that are consistent with the requirements of law and statewide goals and standards established by the Massachusetts Board of Education. So just, I wanted to clarify that for specifically for the record, because you do operate very differently than every other board and commission that we're going to be talking with. So I appreciate you allowing that. You did mention that you have 4 members of your committee. Are you comfortable? 5, sorry.
Yep.
Are you, and you're comfortable with that number?
Yes, yep.
It's
I
sort of
believe so.
sufficient?
Yes.
No interest in alternates?
I don't think so. I think if we had alternates, I think it would be difficult for them, because they'd have to go almost to the you'd have to go to every meeting, obviously, or
Yes.
if you missed a couple, but we do a pretty good job of showing up to all of them, so I almost feel like it would be a double. And even if one member isn't there, we still can have a vote. It hasn't come up that we've needed alternates
Okay,
in the years I've been there.
thank you. And you're comfortable with the fact that your committee is an elected board?
Yes.
Okay.
I wish more would step up, but yeah. I think there was a question too about staff. I wasn't sure what that was about, but for us, it would be
Dr. Byetta.
Dr.
That's kind of
Byetta.
why I made that
Right.
comment. That
But also, when we were looking for our principals, we were part of the search for that. We are part of the search for the principals themselves, but if a school has an assistant principal, like the high school, it's up to the principal then to, we have enough faith in who we've hired as the principal to do their staff. They come with a recommendation to Dr. Byetta. He looks at the final numbers, and he pretty much relies on what they give him.
What are your thoughts on the level of guidance and/or support that you receive from the town?
It's gotten better. I do feel, like I said, the reason why we started going to all of the meetings and actually having joint meetings of the 3 boards was because we felt that there wasn't any attendance at our meeting. We weren't we were watching, but sometimes if we were in the selectmen meeting, we'd be going. And there was just a miscommunication. It was almost, we were asked to do a study by the selectmen to see if one of our school buildings could actually be turned over for the town hall when this all started, which we did. But now there's some rumblings about a $45,000 study that they want to do for our school enrollment, which we just did less than 3 years ago. So there's still a little bit of, I won't call it lack of support, and I won't call it lack of trust, but there's definitely a lack of, across the board, being able to just say something and have somebody say okay, as opposed to, I don't believe you, I'm going to look into it, which is fine, and we're very open. On our website is the ClearGov, which we do not run, we do not post. It is a state system, and it has everything you could possibly want to know about salaries, about students, numbers, test scores. It's all right there, very transparent.
Excuse me.
But it has gotten better. And I think the last meeting we had with the 3 of us, I believe it was Bill Gavea, brought up a very good point about budgets. It was the end of the year, and he said, we should stop coming up with the budget that we think we can get. What we really should do is come up with the budget that we need to really work well, and let's see how far we are behind. And it's not, he wasn't just talking to the school. That was to fire, to police, that was to everybody. Because it's true. I mean, luckily, we are doing really well with our school choice. That is paying for a lot of things that we are implementing right now to stay on point, not ahead, on point. So, without that, we'd be in big trouble.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can I
was looking up to see if anybody.
Oh, yeah, I caught you there. I wasn't sure. I was just curious about the process for, and I heard, what Laura read about the state guidelines and what you're responsible for.
Yes.
But I was curious about the process of choosing a superintendent. And is there any collaboration involved with town officials or anybody else other than the board when that is done?
Yes, I believe that, I wasn't on the superintendent search myself, but I believe there are, because he's been here 7 years, I think. I believe that there are school committees involved, school committee members, there are town officials involved, there are parents involved. It's a pretty big search committee.
Okay.
I know when we just did the principal one, there was even some students that were involved because it directly affects them.
Yeah.
Every year he has goals and a pathway, we'll call it, that he wants to follow, and every other year, I think it is, we actually fill out a survey on how we feel he's doing on those jobs, and that's feedback that he gets from us.
And is that process outlined anywhere? Like the process of the hiring and the collaboration, is that outlined anywhere?
I'm sure
for you?
that it is.
Okay.
It would probably be in the superintendent's office.
Okay.
It's in the policy handbook, I'm sure. Actually, it is in the policy handbook because we just took a policy handbook this big and made it this big because some of it was, there's a difference between procedure and policy. Procedure is what we have now, whereas before it was a policy book, which some of the schools need to make their own policies for certain. And you can't put everything in a procedure book, especially in this world where everything's changing so quickly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have access, does the committee have access to everything it needs to function properly?
As a board, yes.
Okay.
As a budget, no. But changing government isn't going to change that either.
No, probably not. Okay. Any trends or changes in the regulations in your area that you see potentially impacting the committee and its functions going forward?
Well, I'm hoping, and this article was just in, about how Norton and Seekonk were among the 100 school committees endorsing more funding. The formula that the state funds schools is so outdated that if they were to, it has to pass multiple stages before it would actually go into law, but Norton would get $500,000 more from the state if they were to change their funding.
Is that under the bill that they're currently?
They're trying, yes.
And what is your current budget?
Excuse me?
What is the current budget? for the school?
25 million.
Okay.
25 million. But we were 542,000 short last year, so obviously
That would make up a little bit,
huge
yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Any other trends or changes in?
Not that I see. Obviously, we've got some trends and changes with kids, with the social emotional. We've started, because funding is what it is, we found that the Boston Children's Hospital does free online training courses. They're calling them TAP. And what it is if a teacher chooses to, obviously we can't make them do things, but we're asking them to do so much more now than we ever have. They have to teach, they have to counsel, they have to keep their eye on, certain kids to make sure that they're still focused and ready to go. But we're not really we haven't given them the tools to be able to do that. This is an online program that you can do at home, on your computer, wherever, and it really gives somebody an outline of a way of changing of thinking about things. Like, instead of, why is Johnny doing this to me today and ruining my class? What happened to Johnny to make him act this way? And when you can change that mindset, and not only that, but when you can see what is actually happening physically in a child's brain when they're in a trauma situation, and trauma to a kid can be totally different than what we think trauma is. There's an actual physical change, and the physical change affects their ability to concentrate, their ability to memorize, and their ability to use their cognitive skills to focus on something. How do you expect them to learn if that's the part of their brain that's affected? So this is an online course that I just got the pamphlets today. We'll be handing them out to all the schools so that if a teacher is interested in learning a little bit more about it, it's something they can do. But again, it's out of their contract, so it's not something we can mandate, but just a little extra tool to try to help them. So anything that we can get like that. We just got the grant for the new security system at the school. So now when a parent comes in, or a volunteer comes in, your ID will actually go into a thing. It scans your ID, and it's almost like an automatic query check right there. If there's any red flags, it's up to the building principal then to either escort the person while they're in the building, or if it's really bad, not allow the person in at all. And you actually get a sticker badge with your face on it. So there's no more of the purple, I'm a guest, who are you, where are you going? It has your destination, your picture, and everything right on it. And that was all funded by a grant.
Is that in all schools?
Yes, should be in all 5 schools. Mm-hmm.
Have you worked with or come across any towns where the school committee is structured differently or operates differently that you'd be interested in pursuing?
As I said, when I go to the conference in November, I'm proud of our school committee. I'm proud of our school system as a whole. Anything that is on the forefront, we're either talking about it or trying to find a way to get it. If we don't already have it, if we haven't already implemented it. I have to say, I think our school committee works very well together, and we're, by reaching out to the town as we did last year aggressively, I think we're really making some headway on getting all the boards at least speaking and knowing what one hand is doing with the other. So.
Okay. As it relates to the town government, what are some things that you think we should start, stop, or continue to do?
I think town meeting in its true sense of how it should work is a good idea. I think unfortunately there aren't enough people who participate in much of anything in a lot of things. If you look at our elections, if you look at our town meetings, the town meeting last January, which was to change a major part of our bylaws, was attended by 123 people, I think. If we could have a town meeting where people would show up and actually vote, I think that that would be something that would be good. However, I just don't see that happening here in the 24 years I've been here. It's a little disheartening because then you get on Facebook, which I try not to do anymore, and you see everybody's complaining about it. Well, I didn't see you there, and I didn't, So it's difficult to try to make big decisions and not have input from other people, but then get their criticism after.
Any other comments with regards to town government?
I'm still trying to figure it all out. Like you say, I mean, I would just like to see more people get involved, whether it be running for an office or, but if it's not going to happen, then I think we definitely need a change.
Anything I didn't ask about that you wanted to bring up with us this evening?
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Any other questions from Ms. Stern?
Nope.
I think we're all set.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate
No
it.
problem.
Okay. All right, conservation.
Hello.
Hi there, how are you?
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Okay, Conservation Commission is Board of Selectmen appointed. They have 7 members. And if, just for the record, if you could just state your names, please.
Sure. My name is Scott Alderhead.
Daniel Pearson.
Thank you. Why don't we just start with an introduction, if you could just tell us your tenures on the commission, brief explanation of the responsibility, how often you meet, and how you work with staff.
Sure. I've been on for since 2012. I'm the chairperson. I have a science background, and I'm an environmental engineer, so I was always interested in this, and when the opportunity became available, I decided to sign up and get appointed onto it. We have 7 members, as you mentioned before. We've had a hard time filling the full 7-member board. We've had as little as 5 for a couple of years, 6 for a while. Only very recently, maybe the last year and a half, we've had 7. So we meet every 2 weeks, usually the 2nd and 4th Monday of every month. But with town meetings and holidays and things like that, it's sometimes hard to meet twice every month. So we exist because of the Wetlands Protection Act, which is a state regulation. It's independent of the town government. So we would have to have a board, no matter what decision is made as far as how we run our government. The only details that can be decided is the process by which each member is appointed and how long they're there for and how many members there are and that kind of stuff. But what we do has to be done, and it's at a state level, not town level.
And what are your thoughts on how the members are chosen for your commission specifically?
I would agree that they should be appointed. You agree too, right?
I would agree too.
Okay. This is supposed to be our opinion, not just mine, so.
Feel free to jump in anytime.
Do you feel like you're getting the level of expertise that you need for the commission? For the commission members? I mean, you're enforcing.
From members that
Yeah.
we have? Yeah, I think we have a very good board. We've had a few people come in and out in the time I've been here, and they've all been good, and they're invested. They spend a lot of time reading and learning.
Good.
And they're not all from science or engineering backgrounds or environmental backgrounds, but they still learn the regulation that they need to and follow closely with all the hearings that we have.
I know you had mentioned that the commission was hard to fill. Are you comfortable with 7?
Go ahead.
Well, we've been considering alternates, and we would like to have alternates. while you're writing, I might mention I'm Dan Pearson. I've been in town for 50 years, and I am one of those unfortunate whom Scott mentions who doesn't have a science background, but try to muddle through. My mother is Myrna Pearson, who started the environmental science program at Wheaton College, and we had just casually mentioned among ourselves earlier that we might bring in a Wheaton student in some way, perhaps as an internship. In any case, this dovetails with our next concern, and that is the conservation agent, Jennifer Carlino, who is quite possibly the best conservation agent in the Commonwealth, if not the universe. And one of the problems for someone who is so good, and I would use the colloquialism scary good, she's really excellent, but one of the problems is she makes it look easy. And she is also able to do superhuman feats. But she takes on the responsibility of not only guiding the Conservation Commission, and she's always careful to say that she's just there as a guide, not as a director, but she also takes on the responsibility of looking after the Edith Reed site, as well as writing grants, writes all the grants, something that she's done extremely well. She's in charge of the Open Space Committee, and she's in charge of stormwater management, which is very important for, among other reasons, it can affect our drinking water. So she has a lot of hats, and she has a lot to do, and she could use more help to do it. I know, Scott, if you want to...
Well, the reason why he brings this up is each one of those things he just mentioned could be a part-time job. Her primary job is to enforce and administer the Wetlands Protection Act. She's supposed to make us function better. She does a very good job with that, as Dan mentioned, but she also is stretched very thin because of all these other things that technically you could have a part-time person working on. Stormwater bylaw is another full-time position that somebody should be doing, and she has to do that in addition to being a conservation agent. And then you have the open space work that she's doing with the camping and the fires that Edith Reed, a lot of interest in that now. We are petitioning a town meeting for additional money for her part-time person, so hopefully that gets approved. That will definitely help her out. The grant writing, yeah, we'd love to see somebody else doing that. She's really the only one qualified to do it for our type of grant money right now, unless we hire somebody outside, but she does a great job. She gets a lot of grant money for us. And we, as everyone I'm sure is aware, with the whole Bay Road issue that we've had this year, people were against the solar farm. A thing that keeps coming up is a wetland bylaw. We tried that 3 or 4 years ago. It was unfortunately voted down. There was a lot of work between the conservation agent and the Conservation Commission at the time. I wasn't on it at the time. So they are reluctant to want to do it again. I'm trying to push them to do it, but that's a lot more work for probably 9 months to a year of reviewing, much like what you guys do, reviewing other charters, what we would do with other bylaws to see what people like, what they don't like. But that's another job that she doesn't have time for. So I'm not really asking for anything. I'm just saying that she is stretched thin, and in my ideal world, there would be money available for, to have a better run commission with, more people.
There was an assistant agent at
Yes.
some point.
There was
Did
an
that money go
assistant-
away?
No, we have an assistant part-time agent now.
Oh,
In
she's
2009,
part-time, okay.
there was a full-time assistant.
Yeah.
Then the recession hit, and most of the public people lost their assistants. At least they get cut to part-time.
Yeah.
Every other department, pretty much in town hall, have their assistants have been moved back to full-time, except her.
Okay.
We are also petitioning a town meeting for the money for her to work an additional 20 hours.
Yep.
So she'll be full-time, which will definitely help out.
How many hours does she have now?
She's at 18 hours a week right now. As Dan mentioned, there are when you submit a package, like to do a project on wetlands, there's a checklist of different things that you need to provide. And sometimes they're not always in the right order, they're not always included, there's things that are missing, signatures that aren't there. It's not really the best use of Jen's time to be going through that point by point. It's hours that it could take. That's what Dan mentioned, having a college student who just reads the checklist, knows what to look for, spends time to look it over. It's time well spent. I mean, I would say it's money well spent, even though it probably won't cost anything. But it's something that we should look into. We don't need necessarily the town to do that. We could push for it on our own, but it's still another way that we can improve.
And an excellent way for a student, of course, to gain experience in the real world goings on of environmentalism.
You're a legacy. Can't you get it done?
I'm not that much of a legacy.
I just have one quick question, and not that I think it's within the scope of this commission, but just a matter of interest. But you mentioned we don't have wetland bylaws today. Do all the other towns in Massachusetts have?
Many towns besides us have a wetland bylaw, right? And what that means is the state has certain rules that are allowed for wetlands or what can be built where.
Yeah.
And we as a commission can do what we can to either approve or deny projects, but if they meet the state regulations, even if we denied the project, the state can overrule it and say you can build it anyway. So the state doesn't have the town's best interests in mind all the time, where we do. So a wetland bylaw supersedes the state rules. It's more restrictive. So even if the state allows something, if we had a bylaw in place, it still wouldn't happen.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, that makes sense.
Understanding you're very happy with the current conservation agent, were she to go away, what are your thoughts on the way in which the conservation agent is hired?
I would recommend having cooperation between the town manager, or whatever the executive town person is who's in charge, and the Conservation Commission, who both agree on the person and approve them.
Would you like to see the Conservation Commission solely responsible for the committee to find a conservation agent and hire them?
No, I wouldn't want to see them solely responsible for that.
Okay.
I would want to see them largely responsible.
Yes, absolutely. It'd be a cooperative effort.
Okay. Tell me about your thoughts on the level of guidance and/or support that you receive from the town.
It's kind of a loaded question. The town has been helpful. They've been representatives at our meetings occasionally, and they help to bridge the gap between developers and us. We may have an opinion on one side. They may have an opinion not on the other side, but they want to help us to understand what the developer's coming from in some cases. I don't think they're antagonistic. I think it's not much connection, really. I mean, would you agree?
I have, my view isn't as good as yours, but it seems like there, no, I mean, by which I mean I have nothing negative to say about the town. I just don't know it as well as the town's cooperation with the commission. But from what I've seen, I think there isn't all that much time spent with the commission.
I would agree. There's not a lot of involvement.
There's not a lot of involvement between the commission and the town. There's some.
Would you prefer more involvement?
It depended. I mean, if we had like a liaison, maybe. But again, we're separate from town government in the sense that we only exist to enforce and administer the Wetlands Protection Act. So I don't know how a town representative would help with that. I'd welcome ideas if you guys had any.
Do you feel you have access to everything that you need, information, technology, people to perform your function as a commission properly?
I think we should have a better GIS system in place. I don't know where we're at town-wide. Keith, do you have any access to GIS? No, in the department. So I think that we should try to get all out of the town, not just us, highway, water, sewer. It'd be very useful.
That's the mapping system, correct? The
Yeah.
the overlays.
Yeah,
and stuff, okay.
exactly. You could overlay the whole town and have different layers on top of it, depending on what you want to know. But a lot of towns use it. It's very useful.
Are there any trends or changes to regulations in your area of expertise that you are seeing potentially impacting your function going forward?
Solar. A lot of issues with solar. It's a fledgling industry that's trying to increase as much as they can. They may be rushing a little bit, in my opinion. I don't want to be the guy who's against solar in this environment, but I don't want to see it be done irresponsibly either. So I think that some hand-holding might be needed for responsibly installing solar farms.
Have you worked with or come across any towns where conservation is structured differently?
Wetlands bylaw. Dedham has a very good conservation program. I don't know if it's the people on it or the director. They have a wetlands bylaw. They have a couple people on DEP who are members on the board, so they're very, but they're not structured any differently than we are. So I think we're fine. I think we do well with what we have. We have all the support we need. And like Dan said, if we have a good agent, we are a better commission. Whether that's Jen or not, I think that we need a good agent, and I hope she stays for a long time.
As it relates to how our town government operates, there are things that you think we should start, stop, and/or continue doing?
As it relates to town government?
Town government.
Conservation?
Yes. It can be in a personal capacity, it can be...
This is not the board's opinion, though, is it? Is it my opinion? I mean, what do you think from...
You're a resident of the
perspective?
town.
Well, I plead that I didn't realize I was going to be a talker, but I knew I was going to listen tonight, but I didn't realize that I was, that's, I don't know that there is anything on the top of my...
Oh, I know what I wanted to add. I think we should very much push for having a town engineer.
That was going to be my next question.
As an engineer, I can see the value personally, but I think people being able to trust somebody who works for the town that has the technical expertise to weigh in on projects as they're happening, rather than a third-party engineer, which they're doing it for a job. They don't have any vested interest in our town. But the people are looking to for help may not have the expertise that they need, so that they have to go to the third party. And I think a town engineer would be very helpful. So, I don't know how we find the money for that or where we structure that, but I think that's something that would be useful.
Actually, there is something that comes to mind. Now I guess I can't mention it because of open meeting law, but...
Just us.
Generally, there are sometimes instances that are similar, so I don't need to mention a specific instance, but we will have instances where people will do something that they know might not be, might be against the law, such as, I don't know, dump something in a wetland. And they should know that this is, and we have a process by which we have enforcement orders, and they might know that there's going to be an enforcement order, and they do it anyway, because then, they just do it, and what are we going to do about it? Well, we'll give them an enforcement order. We don't have any fines. I guess I don't know how popular we'd be if we, this is my idea, by the way, not the commission's, if we had the power to fine
Wetlands
people.
bylaw. That's what we're doing.
Well, that's, I am
We
very,
can spell out
very
exactly
much in
what would be
favor.
required.
So,
of a
so you can give an order to remediate whatever it is that they did, but there's no teeth behind it.
Right.
No
Exactly.
teeth behind it. You could,
Exactly. We do a cease and desist, but we can't do anything about what's already been done.
Right.
Beyond send an enforcement order and then. that's pretty much
So
it.
the state doesn't have a way of,
They do on some areas. I'm not really familiar enough with how.
You'd probably have
they
to
go
go
back
to
and- What's that?
court. I said you'd probably have to go to court
Right.
to enforce
Right.
it, which is
Yeah,
expensive.
we are, yes, exactly.
ends up not being worth the,
You're right.
yeah.
It's a judgment. It wouldn't be the DEP. It'd be a judge and they decide.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just.
That's okay. And the woman who was here before us from the school board, she had mentioned that town meeting is a good idea in theory. Everyone should have a representation and have a say. But when you only have 5% or 2% of people show up for town meeting, it's not a true representation. You get a few people who, wield a lot more opinions than they should be able to. So I would recommend looking into something else, which I'm sure you guys will find out.
Are there any other questions? Is there anything we didn't ask about that you wanted to bring up with us this evening?
Jen needs help.
And I would just add that Jen needs help.
You guys are great advocates for her.
Does Jen need help?
Sorry?
Does Jen need help?
I think she might, yeah.
She might.
She mentioned it, but not necessarily
Yes.
as forcefully
Yes.
as you did.
None of which.
But, well, I'll just add one more. It's in the way that a Lamborghini needs help. Being, well, anyway, I'll stop right there. before I-
Expertise could be used for,
Yes,
could be focused.
could be focused
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah, okay.
She's riding on country roads and she could be out on the highway.
Yes, exactly.
There we go. Any other questions?
That's it?
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time. We
you, and
appreciate
thank
it.
you for
Thanks for your
waiting.
patience, yes.
Thank you.
Weeks for the water board.
See you soon.
I think this commission is an excellent idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we Lamborghinis?
Well,
Your reserve judgment?
I'm more of a Volkswagen bug.
I love the Volkswagen.
All right, continuing on with the agenda, which is now in order. Acceptance of the prior minutes. When we're ready, I will take a motion to accept.
I'll motion to accept minutes of,
Monday, September 23rd, 2019.
And I will second that motion.
Is everybody ready? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are accepted. Okay. All right, a few admin things. Just note in your calendars, on November 18th, we're going to be meeting in the library. The Board of Selectmen room was not available that evening. Lee Parker has made the space available. There is a group of teens, and I forget what they are, going right up until 7, but she said we could probably coerce them into helping us set up tables for our meeting at 7, so. And Keith is going to lock up for us. Sandy has given us an update on the coming schedule of meetings. Oh, yep. So confirmation, we are meeting with the Mass Municipal Association and Lauren Goldberg the night of the 7th, which I think is a Thursday, at 7 p.m., and I have booked this room, so we'll meet here. Looks like we've got... You still haven't heard back from IDC, huh?
No, but I reached out to the new chair today.
Did you? Hopefully you'll have better luck with that.
Because she still needs to come in anyway.
Yes, that's actually a good point. All right.
I just wanted to confirm, on November 7th, we're starting at 7?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll have to do 2 agendas that week because we'll have a meeting on the 4th as well.
And that'll be in this room?
Both meetings that week are in this room, yes. Right now, the only night that we're not meeting in here is November 18th. Although I should probably mention, I did book on the calendar the Board of Selectmen room for every other Monday going through June. And I was informed by Mr. Units that for our reference, the FinCom typically uses this room on Mondays and Wednesdays for the 3 months preceding town hall. So we're going to have to figure out what to do on a few of those nights potentially.
Okay.
All right. Anything we need to know about the upcoming schedule, Sandy?
No, I think, I hand wrote in their cultural council, because I just booked with them today. for
Okay.
16.
So for the next meeting, we've got the Permanent Building Committee, this is Parks and Recreation Committee, or Commission, and then the Library Trustees with the Library Director. Do you see us taking them all at the same time?
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think they wanted to do.
That's like, it makes sense.
All right. Any preference on order? Does it matter? I don't see any one of these really taking any longer than the other, so
Yeah.
let's just go alphabetically. All right. And still working through December. Okay. Update on our survey. I did another little push, sent out a reminder on Norton Alerts, and shared it with the Facebook, Norton Facebook pages. We seem to get a little bump every time we do it. This time wasn't as good as the last time. We're at about 118 responses total. What I did do was I took them down as of, not took them down, I took the responses as of the 6th, and I downloaded them into an Excel format, and I loaded them to Dropbox, which I thought actually might be helpful for Janie to incorporate with the tracking of all of the other public comments that we've got. And at some point, I'm not sure what you want to use. If you want to use, is Excel better for you than Word?
No.
Okay. So right now, you have 118 responses loaded up in Excel that you can feel free to parse and sort out however you feel. With regards to the survey, Kevin is going to the senior center. He just actually told me on October 15th, which is a Tuesday at 12:15, which is the time Beth has informed him is the busiest during the week. I suspect it's probably bingo. And he picked up the surveys today, which I'm really sad to report there were only 2 of them. I thought that would be quite the cache of feedback, but we seem to be getting more. We've gotten 5 or 6 out of the envelope that we've left outside the clerk's office, and we've gotten more there than we have from the senior center. But Kevin has committed to speaking with them and putting together a list of feedback, and he's hoping for some good input and suggestions back from them. All right, remote participation, I am sad to report, has still not been voted on, but I am optimistic we will see a vote on October 17th. I've gotten a commitment from the Board of Selectmen that they will put it on the agenda. We can expect to see probably some additional restrictions beyond what is within the state mandate. And Mary Steele is working on that and putting that together, and hopefully they'll vote on that on the 17th. We'll have a resolution, and then we can test it. And
Laura, can I go back to the survey for a second?
Yeah.
How long did we decide that we're going to keep this out there?
I think we decided through the end of December, kind of keeping it open for as long as we're kind of doing information gathering. But I'm happy to entertain other ideas if somebody had a different thought.
I would agree.
I think that's fine.
You in agreement?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I just think at some point we're gonna have to consider, I know no one liked it last time I mentioned, but I just think at some point we're gonna have to consider another survey. As we look at, different options in terms of representative town meeting, town council. I think we're gonna have to put out another survey, asking people what they think about each one as we start to look at them. And my concern is having so many just back-to-back right out there.
So do you think we should close the one that's presently out there? Well, we have to keep it out at least as long as the fall town meeting, because we made flyers for it.
Right. No, I'm not suggesting we close it out. I would just like to put it out at the table. I think that at some point, once we get through this phase, we're going to have to, I think, put out another one and ask people what they think about these options that we're considering. I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
I think it's hard because I think in order for you to ask them a question and expect an educated answer back, they need to understand what the options really are in depth.
Yep.
And unless they're paying attention, they're not going to necessarily be able to
Yeah.
answer those questions really
Yeah.
well.
I agree, but I do think it's our job to say, maybe some educational blurb. I mean, at some point, we need to have another open hearing where after this.
Well, I mean, we're going to have educational sessions, right?
Yeah.
With the audience, with the
Right.
community,
Right.
and get the feedback there
Yeah.
for sure. But
No, we're required to do a second formal public hearing where we have to do the notification in the paper and
Right.
everything. That's significantly further down the road, and has more to do with the draft of our recommendations, and what we make, but,
I'm just concerned if we put a survey out about, what do you think? We're considering, this is the option that the commission is leaning towards. What are your thoughts on it? We're going to get a lot of, feedback back, but it may not be terribly meaningful if they don't really understand what those options really involve.
Well, and I would agree, to a point. I don't think you can ask them, in general, what do you think? But I think we need to say, do you like speaking at town meeting? I mean, simple questions, yes or no, and would you give that up? Do you like this option better? Answers that I think they can answer with yes or no.
I think we need to decide if we're going to do that, what we're going to do with the information beforehand, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think, again, the statistics piece of it, right? If we get 20 responses that all say the same thing, is that really representative of what people think? So I think I just would be a little careful with how we use the information. But, I think even just, another public session or something where pushing more information out about this is what we're discussing, welcoming to come to our meetings, or things like that could also be beneficial to get input.
It might be more helpful to, have a public forum where we can have a discussion, rather than have them answer a survey in a vacuum. We're clearly not getting very many responses, given the number of people in town.
Or invite people to email us with, this is what we're discussing, if they can't come to a public hearing.
Right.
Give us your feedback on this. I think, I guess that's my big caution, is what are we going to do with the information, and making sure we use it in the best way.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but that's my thought. I also think public hearing, you're gonna get a limited amount of people too.
Absolutely,
You're not gonna
yeah.
get-
And I'm not thinking
you're
like
gonna
one
represent
public,
them.
I mean, clearly we didn't get
Right.
very many people at the
Correct.
first public hearing.
Correct.
But I wonder if there's a way, again, I think we need to wait and sort of see where we're headed. But see, maybe just info sessions with not necessarily all of us, but with, maybe we have a couple of people go and have a couple of them, I don't know.
Well, I think you're right, and I like the point in terms of, we really need to see where we're going, and I am thinking into the future, and I'm hesitant to bring something to the table and say, this is what we got, without having that input. I know we're in the information gathering, but once we get that, and we're looking at this stuff, I think it's important that we know what people think. in
So
one
just
form
finding
or
ways to
another.
continue to get the public input
Yeah.
after we start making decisions.
Correct.
Certainly, I think
And the input itself is gonna change, it has to change.
Right.
You know, even if we don't get as many as we like on this one.
Right, and we really need to keep a dialogue going with the public so that, because we have this job that has an end date, and so we need them to understand what it is we're doing so that they can make an informed decision at the poll. So I think any way we can meaningfully do that, keep that conversation going is good.
I agree. I mean, public engagement is certainly key. right?
Yeah.
How we do it and what we do with the information, you have to figure that.
The one thing we heard at the first public hearing was transparency. Like, we
Yeah.
need more, we need more and better communication. So figuring out how best to do that, I think, is good.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Any other discussion on that? Okay. So, given that, should we discuss shutting the survey off earlier than we had anticipated?
we could probably shut it down right around Thanksgiving. I don't think anybody's going to be looking at it after the holiday.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
If we wanted to sort of give them some time, like, where we're not talking to them and then
Yeah.
start again in the new year.
Yeah, no, we don't want to fatigue them either.
Right,
Like, oh
exactly.
God, those people again, like.
Another survey.
They will not shut up. But it's a total damned if you do, damned if you don't.
know.
People will still be like, I didn't know.
They can always, the survey is just one tool.
Piece,
Like,
yeah.
they can always email us, and
Yeah.
we can,
They can come to
we
any
can
meeting.
try to figure out better ways of communicating, because, like, I know
Okay.
I've been trying to share it, like, with people I know, and even they haven't been, haven't found the time to do it, so.
Yeah, I've got, friends and neighbors that are like,
Yeah.
oh, I still have to do that. I'm like, yes, please. Do it. If you would. Okay, all right, so we'll talk about potentially turning it off sometime around the end of Thanksgiving, and we're gonna have to brainstorm on ideas for public outreach going forward and making them aware of things that we might be discussing, where we want their input specifically. Okay. All right. Moving on to the North Attleboro Charter. Town of North Attleboro has a population of 28,712 residents, of which 19,861 are registered, for a percentage of just over 69%. They have a town council form of government that was changed from representative town meeting in 2019, very recently. They have 9 town council members, with the president being the one receiving the highest number of votes. They have a strong town manager. And let's just dig in and see if there was anything. One of the things I did note, I started pulling up a bunch of different town council, because they all seem to be laid out similarly. And I did, with very few exceptions, they all seem to have the same sections, not particularly in the same order, and in some cases they combine the election information with the resident participation section. But the articles or the sections in which this one falls seems to be very representative of most of the ones within the state that I read, that I looked at just cursorily. So anything in Article 1? Article 2, legislative branch.
I just made a note that I liked that the president, vice president, and even filling in vacancies was based on number of votes and who was on the ballot, because I think it just makes it faster and less, there's less, no debating going on.
Mhm.
It's just pretty simple and straightforward.
Yep.
That's just my personal opinion.
So I like that too. I did, but I have to say, again, probably not a popular opinion here. I have to say for this commission to support or recommend that is kind of hypocritical in terms of the fact that, we didn't consider the number of votes, wasn't even a discussion when we formed this commission. We glossed right over that and went right to a vote. No one even discussed it. So I feel like it's a little hypocritical to support that and say voters' numbers count here, but not somewhere else.
It's a fair point. Yeah, the first one that we read that was town council, you had to specifically run for president, which,
Watertown, yeah.
yeah,
And it was both council president and a member of the school committee. And I think it was a voting member of the school committee.
So, yeah, this one's a member of the school
Yeah.
committee, but not voting, right? They can voice their opinion, but they don't get a vote, yeah. I thought the, 2.5D was interesting, that it's very clearly laid out about their inability to, I guess, meddle in appointments by the town manager. So I
yeah.
put a question mark, like, did something happen that sparked this, like?
there seems to, where it falls differs, but there's always something of that nature and not necessarily specific to interfering with town manager. In some cases, it's interfering with various departments, or the school committee.
But interestingly, I didn't see the reciprocal in the town manager's thing, like that they couldn't interfere with the appointments of the council, and like you'd think it'd be reciprocal, right? But I don't remember seeing that in there.
Yeah. One of the things I had a question about, 2.6A, the very last sentence in the first paragraph, prior to final passage, each proposed bylaw shall be read at 2 separate council meetings. Does that include the meeting in which the vote takes place? Meetings that have to happen in 2 and then you vote on it in the 3rd, or can the vote happen in the 2nd?
I would think the vote could happen in the 2nd.
Okay. The other question I had, proposed bylaws and other members shall be introduced in writing. By what party? Is this a town council member sponsoring a particular bylaw or measure? Is town manager bringing these in? Is it a board? Does it depend on what the?
I would imagine anybody, as long as they are bringing it in, as long as, and I don't know if they're requiring a council person to sponsor something, say, that's proposed by the planning board, or if the planning board can simply suggest it.
Okay. That's what I'm finding lacking in all of these is.
More specificity.
Yeah, when you've got any form of town meeting, there's a warrant, there's articles, and, there's a procedure for how those things get on the warrant, but I'm less clear as to, whether it can only be introduced by a town council member. Can it be the, planning board if they had to make a, change to a bylaw or a rule? Can they, and it says it has to be in the writing in the form necessary for final adoption. Does the town manager handle all of that? Does it filter through them?
Good question. I don't know. There are also rules that the council comes up with, so I wonder if it's spelled out more in the
maybe
council rules.
Okay. Yeah, but none of the charters pertaining to town council have I seen that addressed specifically on how that works. All right, continuing in, anything else in 2? Anything within 3 elected officials? Anything within 4, town manager? So going back to my prior question, I looked to see if the town manager, one of his responsibilities under 4.2 was to bring measures. Number 5 says he makes recommendations to recommend to town council for adoption such measures, but it doesn't say specifically he will draft them.
Are you looking at 4.2?
I was looking at, 4.2, number 5, under the powers and duties of the town manager. Where it just states he recommends to the town council measures for adoption.
I think it's a pretty common clause, too. I think we see that.
Yeah. So I was hoping to find the answer to my earlier question there, and it didn't really help.
Yeah.
Interestingly, here, the town manager signs the warrants, all of them. There doesn't appear to be any town council approval required. There's a reporting to, but not an approval required. Not sure there's a firm set of checks and balances or whether or not it's actually needed, but. I did like number 22, though. To promote partnership among town council, staff, citizens, and businesses in developing public policy and building a sense of community.
Yeah, wasn't there, didn't Amherst have a separate, it wasn't, I don't think it was town manager, but didn't they have like a
Clause
separate
within there,
person or
Yeah.
commission to do that?
Yeah.
Because I like that too, but I question the word to promote, like if it could be something a little more binding, like what exactly does promote mean?
Not really definable.
Right,
Yeah.
in terms of what his responsibility is to do that.
What were you thinking of, like, to achieve?
What?
To achieve, or something like that?
I don't know what the word would be, but you just mentioned, was it Watertown that had a person to do that?
I think it was Amherst, I think it was,
Amherst.
the last
Yeah.
one we looked at,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a big
Is it-
paragraph about, I
Like,
liked that.
yeah, they had it like
Right.
designated a specific person.
Right,
to,
and
like-
very clear about what their responsibilities were.
There's community
I think
involvement.
promote could
And it
fall
was
by the way.
recruiting
Officer or something.
volunteers to
Recruiting
serve on
volunteers,
boards
get
and
more
stuff
involved
like
in the
that.
in the
like-
town
Yeah.
government.
I feel like this just could that could fall by the wayside very easily, promote.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had.
It could be in our charter.
Right, right.
Yeah.
We have lots of things in our charter that aren't
Yeah.
actually being done.
All right. Anything else in section 4?
I couldn't remember if all towns did this, but there's the powers of appointment, 4.4-3-2, also member bodies. I did go back and look at Amherst, and I noticed the town council appoints.
There were a few that they appoint.
Is it, like that stuff, I'm reading that at least as like the planning board, for example, is appointed by the town manager. I believe that in Attleboro, I believe the planning board is an appointed board, not an elected board. So
Yeah.
they would appoint, there's a lot of power to a town manager.
In here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very strong town manager, and it's one thing to appoint department heads to a
Yeah.
planning board, which is,
And-
for example, is a pretty powerful role for a town manager.
Yeah. What was also interesting within section 5, a lot of those boards that are town manager appointed were formally elected, and a lot of them.
Yeah.
which I found interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, I suppose the plus side of it is it takes the politics out of it, probably.
Yeah. But planning board, for example, was one of them. Although I think we've seen a couple of appointed planning boards, typically.
There have been some appointed planning boards.
Yeah.
I agree. But it was appointed by the town council, I believe.
Right, I was gonna say not by the town manager per se.
Yeah.
I think one of the goals of appointing versus electing is that the thought is you'll get more people that will show interest because they don't have to
Oh, yeah,
put
no.
papers and get on the ballot and,
Yeah, no, I don't have so much an issue with the fact they're appointed boards, it was just who's appointing.
yeah.
In this case, it's a town manager who may not be a resident of the town, appointing to a board of citizens.
Right.
Yeah.
Did it say anything about approval by council, or is it just town manager?
Yeah, I do believe that it has to be
Yeah, I think they,
confirmation.
yeah,
So the town council at the end, so they come in at the end.
I think they, I don't know if they can veto it outright, or there was something in here.
It says here, it says, town council, which may within 21 days of notice of such appointment, vote to reject the same.
So yeah, there is a,
Yeah, so they're the backstop, I guess you could say, but.
yeah.
And I'm always wary and wonder, what is the relationship between the town manager and the councilmen? Because, I don't think you often see the town manager appointing people he knows the councilmen are going to, reject. So there's usually some type of communication, I would think, before that. But it's obviously nothing that's stated, but
Yeah.
it just makes me wonder.
Yeah, because that would be a
Hope.
total waste of time for the
Correct.
town manager to do that
Correct.
searching and vetting and.
Right, so I would think there would be some collaboration somewhere along the
Yeah.
line on that, because it is a lot of responsibility for one person, too.
Because when Mike Eunice was here, didn't he had a, I'll call it a complaint, but that's not the right word, but where he would fill a position, and then he had to go to town, then he had to go to selectmen for final approval.
I think there was more hiring, so an actual employee versus a board, was
Yeah, like, I think it was more of a department
Yeah,
type of thing, but
so
yeah.
he'd go through all this process of interviewing and,
Right.
advertising and then interviewing, and then
Then at the end.
he couldn't actually install them in their position
Right.
until Board of Selectmen.
And I think
Oh, voted on it.
Chief Clark
Yes,
also spoke
yeah.
to that.
Yep.
When he was here, he spoke to, his appointments, and they had to be approved. I'm not sure that's ever been an issue, but,
Yeah.
just the
But
waiting.
theoretically,
Correct.
Yeah.
You're right, theoretically it could be, and then just the waiting.
Yeah, you gotta wait till the next meeting.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess from a product perspective, it's probably the town manager who knows what you need in that role, more than anybody, in a lot of cases. Definitely a responsible position.
All right, where are we? Are we in 5? Article 5, administrative organization?
Just my general note was it's a lot of detail to put in the charter, I thought. I think most of this is typically in the bylaws, like size of these committees and appointment terms and all that kind of stuff, but it's a personal preference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately something we need to consider, how,
Because it's harder to change
how
it.
how difficult do you want it to be to change?
Right.
And how easy? Do you want it to be nimble and, be able to be amended as the town changes? Or, are these, so important to have this way that we put it in the charter? And I think we've seen people do it both ways.
Yeah.
Because was it Amherst or the one before where they didn't have any positions listed?
Yeah, there was one that had
So some of them
Yeah,
have
it drove
had
me
a
nuts.
lot of detail. and
Watertown, I
some-
want to say.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it was
I
Watertown.
can't remember which one it was, but.
Yeah, I remember getting to the
like
end
nothing.
and going, there's nothing here. Where are all the boards? And then they were mentioned in the transition section, I think, and that was it.
Well, I guess it's probably easier to make a change to a bylaw
It is,
than a
yeah.
charter.
Yep.
Right.
So if you say the Board of Election Commission is 4 members, well, it's going to be 4 members. It's going to be, if it's a bylaw, the process to add a 5th would be a lot easier versus
Right.
making a change to the charter.
Yeah,
So
for
it's
me-
not very nimble, I
Right.
guess, is what I'm saying, if you really specified it.
What, does it say anywhere that it can be changed by bylaw, or they're just all specified.
Well, you can choose to pull it into the charter and set the terms there, but again, it just makes it harder to amend later, whereas I'm not even sure if it has to be within the bylaws.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine powers and duties would change very much over time.
Yeah.
But like composition could
Yeah,
probably
right, composition, I think. maybe
be more
doesn't belong
fluid.
there, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be nice to have them all in a central location, so you're not constantly having to refer back to 2 or 3 things, but.
Between bylaws and charter.
And
Yeah.
some of these are prescribed by law, too, so I don't know, like, how specific the state statute is about how many Board of Election Commissioners or how many people in the Housing Authority.
Yeah, some of these might
Or
be.
library trustees or Board of Health, like,
Yeah, if they're
these
step by
boards that have, like, their connection to state statute. I don't know how detailed the state statute is in terms of the composition. I just, or whether it just says you towns have to have a housing authority, have to have,
But even if they were,
planning
even if they
board.
were, I guess, trying to be compliant with state statute, I would say refer to the state statute versus.
Yeah. And they do, they say, as, well, no, that's more powers than.
And the state
yeah.
may
Yeah.
change at some point, right? So,
Mhm.
right.
The interesting thing, the zoning board of appeals, they get alternates, nobody else has alternates. And there's no conservation. If they're listing everything, there's no conservation commission in,
Yeah, there has to be a conservation.
But we have the
gotta
same
be
thing
written
where we don't list
somewhere.
them anywhere.
Yeah, they are
I think it's
established
just
by state
because
law.
it's- Yeah.
okay.
So not even in a bylaw? just
No,
established?
it's really strange. I actually was starting to go through and see who's in a bylaw, who's in a
Yeah.
charter, and who's nowhere, because it's like,
Well, because you'd think you'd at least have to have like a process, or you would want a
Right.
process locally, I don't know.
right, like IDC is mentioned in the charter, but there's no detail anywhere about
Yeah.
what it's comprised of, or how
Reach.
many members, or anything.
Yeah. And a year and a half ago, it wasn't even functioning, so,
Right.
yeah. Whereas, conservation's meets every other week and they're nowhere to be found.
Yeah. And maybe that's, again, because of state law. that
Yeah.
That you don't want to put too much in there that
Right.
could then be changed by state law.
I noticed 5-11, town accountant,
Yeah, I noticed that too.
with the wrong title.
Well, because they have this other independent auditor from the town manager section. It's like one of the 2 positions the town council fills. It's town manager and independent town auditor. And the independent town auditor is like a consultant. It's a third-party consultant. Later on, they explain who comes in and does like an annual
Right.
audit. So they couldn't, because I noticed the same thing. I was like, I thought with the town council, they were supposed to be known as an auditor, but they called somebody else the auditor.
So what was the issue with 511?
That they use the term town accountant.
Should be town, should be
Auditor,
auditor.
based on our town accountant said that
Oh.
it was common practice. It was the same function, but
Yeah.
a different
Yeah. And I
title,
think the
depending
other-
on the form of
yeah, Other
government.
towns have referred to it as
Town auditor.
So do you,
Yeah.
so do you think they have a town accountant and use an outside source? Or are you
They
saying-
do, so they've got this third-party auditor, but they have a very specific function, and I can't remember where that is.
Oh, they do the audit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's just an annual audit.
Okay.
Yeah, so to that point, we have an audit done every year.
Right, right. It was just the title, like,
Yeah.
that's all.
All right.
I'm sure you're
Yeah.
saying I'm paying attention.
What's it?
I'm just telling you, so I'm paying attention.
The other thing I found
Yeah, I
interesting
highlighted.
about this section entirely is it starts naming, it's boards, committees, and positions, and they don't have them identified in any. It just automatically switches over to positions. I didn't see the point of this, the way it was done. All right, Article 6.
So I think similar to one that we've seen before, and I think people said that they liked it. It prescribes, dates early on in the year to start the budget process, and sort of says that the town manager has to deliver a message that's clear to everybody. So it's not just that he's working with the town council, but he's coming up with sort of a budget message for the masses, and which I like, because the budget process is confusing in the best of circumstances.
Right. It prescribes like what he needs to
Right.
put in the message, right? Like what kinds of things.
Well, yeah, one of the things that I liked on that was it says it has to link those programs to the organizational goals and the community priorities.
Because I think that's totally lost on a lot of people,
Yeah.
Yep.
And the impact on the policies in future.
Yep.
And there was one, I don't think it was in here, I don't remember, but there was one that we had read that talked about if there were changes in the budget, increases, decreases, that you explain those changes. I think that'd be wonderful to have.
I just think it helps people, get behind it and support a budget if they know that
Yeah.
there's that there's a goal, that there's.
And there's a reason.
There's a reason. It might not be obvious that this increase is actually going to support, one of the most popular programs in town.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
So I like that.
Me too.
The 6.6C, transfer of appropriations. Have we seen this before? Where the town manager is granted that authority in the charter?
I don't know.
What is it?
Being able to transfer an appropriation between operating budgets, one line item to another.
It doesn't, it's not ringing a bell.
No.
Which normally is not reserved for that position, right? It would be the department
I didn't think so.
that would
Not necessarily the
be able to
department,
move it.
because you can transfer it to a separate department, so I would think it would be town council, because they're the ones who are approving the budget.
Yeah. I think we've seen town council where they can make the changes.
Because we talked before about the difference between having a town council who can move on the fly. If they're meeting every 2 weeks, they can make that kind of change, whereas with town meeting, you've got to wait for the next town meeting or the special town meeting to get people to do that.
Maybe that's why.
And so this is even faster, because you're giving.
Yeah.
And it does set a limit. It looks like the town council can set a limit, like you can't transfer $1 million,
Yeah,
Right, I
$1
wonder what that
necessarily,
number is.
but-
It might be
I know,
so
it was-
small and insignificant.
yeah.
maybe.
maybe they're just avoiding.
Something de minimis.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. Anything else in 6? Anything in 7?
Yes. So 7.5E, it looks like they did the same thing Fall River
Yes.
did.
There's a bunch of towns that have done this.
So if you have somebody who's being recalled, instead of just allowing the recall to stand, so like if the recall is approved, the person is removed, and then you might have people on the ballot
Bless
to
you.
take that place. You can be a candidate for your recalled position, so you could technically be recalled. And if there are enough people running for the position, you split the vote, and you can be voted back in, even after you've been recalled. Like, what's the point of a
Right.
recall if you can get back, slip back in there? So,
Every
now,
ti-
they adopted this before the Fall River debacle.
Yeah.
But,
Go back and change it now.
but we might want to keep that in mind.
Every time I see that clause, I just write no next to it. I highlight it and write no.
But I'm sorry, maybe I'm missing something here, but under that, it's an officer whose recall is sought, right? So he hasn't actually been recalled.
Right, but he's on the ballot for the position. on this, it's
on
the
the same
same
ballot.
ballot for the recall.
So the recall
So
of
you
one
could be
article, yeah.
recalled, but further down the ballot, you're picking somebody for that position, and
So first, up at the
Technically,
top of
you
the
could be
ballot, it
voted
says, do you
back
want to
in.
recall David Wren? And below, it said, who do you want to reelect for that position? And you could be there.
and so you could have a majority recall, and then, you know, just have a
Enough to-
plurality.
Yeah.
to
Or you
get
could be
back
the only
in.
one on the back, you could be the only one running.
That would be sad.
That would be very sad, right? You made
That would be
But
problematic,
conceivably, you could.
but you could.
Is that to further prevent frivolous recalls and to make it that much harder to
But if
really
it's,
get rid of somebody?
but you still need, the recall still needs to pass.
No, I know, but I mean, I feel like that there's a reason that they're putting, I don't think they're just not.
I don't,
putting it
I just
in.
I don't know, but we've seen what happens in practice.
Right,
Right,
and
right.
if there's
So
so
we're
much
not
effort
opposed to
that
that, I
goes
guess,
into a
that point.
recall
Maybe they're
effort,
okay with that.
Yeah.
like the signatures they have
It
to
should
get.
stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I noted about those, if you look at the paragraph after, and I found this confusing, so maybe you can clarify it for me. Let me read. If the officer is not recalled in the election, the officer shall continue in office for the remainder of the unexpired term, subject to recalls before, except provided herein. If the officer is recalled in the election, the officer shall be deemed removed upon the qualification of the officer's successor, who shall hold office during the unexpired term. So it seems like two contradicting things. Is there something I'm missing?
So the way I read this is, if you are not recalled, you just continue.
Yes.
If you are recalled, then you are deemed removed, and the other person goes in, and if you had just a year left on your term, they would serve out that 1 year rather than a new
Right.
term.
Yeah.
So how does that fit into the above being recalled?
Oh, so you could be both the recalled and you could be the successor, in which case you would be removed and then sworn back in.
Which is, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And I understand that process. It just seems like E and F are saying completely different things.
I think it's just providing for like, okay, so if there is a recall election, what do you do if you're, subject to recall? Like, do you stop, when do you stop acting in your position? Is it when the petition is filed, and in this case, it's saying it's not until the recall is actually approved?
I wonder if Lauren knows the conversation that happened around that.
Did she work with North Attleboro?
Yeah.
I would love to
Interested
know,
hear,
because
I'm sure they had a conversation.
if there are two people on the ballot, it's unlikely that they're going to get voted back in. But in Fall River, you had like 4 people running for the position, and so they just split. He didn't have a majority of votes to get back in. He just had a plurality. So there was no runoff, and I think you're seeing now like he's got no votes going for reelection. But anyway, I don't want to pick on any one person, but it's just like the prime example of like,
What could go wrong?
if you're going to have a process laid out for a recall, why subvert it? Like, what was the reason to like allow that situation to happen?
I'd be interested to hear
Yeah.
what their rationale was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to.
I put that on a list for Lauren.
It was deliberately. put
It's
in.
probably already on here
Clearly.
somewhere, but I'm rewriting it.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time
Misunderstood.
we've seen it.
Right,
No.
exactly.
The threshold to get someone recalled, though, is much more challenging than getting your name put on a ballot for.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
To let them just, I feel like it's like they can sneak back in.
Right.
Yeah. No.
I mean, honestly, I don't even know why you.
And
I don't know
sneak
why
back
you'd
in
want to.
without, so you have if you have a majority of town that says, no, this guy's bad news, and recalls them, and then he's got, 50 friends that vote him in, but he's still, 2 more votes than the next guy, like.
Yeah. Because
is
nobody
justice
showed up.
really served?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to know why they did it that way.
And they're not the only ones. But this is the one that's been most recently written, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why that?
But it did happen before Fall River, the election.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not,
I don't
was
know.
that last year or 2 years ago?
It was,
it was
the
2 years
first
ago.
recall,
Yeah.
I think would have happened before this
Yeah.
got voted on.
Maybe. Maybe they
Now, the
couldn't change it.
the second indictment, I don't know, you know.
No,
that's on
that
them,
was very recent. Anyway.
He's innocent.
Yeah. And everybody's innocent until proven guilty. It was simply the recall that I thought was weird, like, that he
Right.
could get
Yep.
back in.
Anything else within 7? Article 8. I kind of feel every time I see it, they've got a different caption for that particular section.
Yeah.
And I think whatever we call it, I think it should be clear to a layperson what exactly it's providing them.
Yeah, because I feel like citizen participation mechanism seems to indicate that, like, there's no other way for citizens to participate in the process.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you know, town council's holding hearings, these multi-body boards are holding hearings, like.
But even like within.
I agree, like,
Yeah.
what, the way we name it should
Yeah.
mean something.
Well,
Yeah.
and it seemed very limited.
Yeah.
It's just this short little word.
All right. So, I have a question on 8.2. Public participation. At a regular meeting of town council, a period of time is provided for residents and voters to speak to matters not listed on the agenda. And it then goes on to state that comments with respect to a pending agenda item may be permitted by a vote. Why are they allowing a resident to speak absolutely on something that's not on the agenda, but is only on a permitted basis for something that is on the agenda?
Well, I think they're just saying if it's going to be coming up, item is going to be.
But even during the discussion within the agenda, it doesn't say they are allowed to speak. It's only if they are permitted to.
Right, but I guess if they're, my thought is that if they're saying it's a pending agenda item, that are they waiting for them to, we'll discuss it when we get to that point.
That's how I
Oh,
read it.
so the keyword there being pending?
Right. Like, we're going to discuss this at the
It's-
next meeting. We don't want to hear from everybody this meeting. We're going to have somebody speak at the next meeting, you know, your experts are going to come in or whatever.
Or even later in the agenda. Like, if you have an agenda, you don't necessarily want to take everybody out of order, but there's this period of time at the beginning where if you have a concern and it's not on the agenda, now's your chance to bring it to our attention. But if it's on the agenda, you need to wait for that to come up, is how I done it.
Yeah, right. I mean, you think about if you have an expert coming in, you know, to discuss a solar farm,
Yeah.
right? You don't want people asking questions or giving their opinions until that person has a chance to present and speak and
Yeah.
whatnot.
The permitted is bothering me,
Yeah.
where, you know, you can come and talk about anything you want to, as long as it's not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, we don't have to let you talk.
No, I think they do let them talk, but later, just not during this particular period of time.
Okay.
So I read it, and again, this might be a question for Lauren. I read it as this section is prescribing a specific period of time for residents to speak, but if you're speaking on something that's already going to be discussed later on in the agenda, you're not going to speak during that period.
Okay.
of time. I could be reading that totally wrong.
I think
Yeah, I
That's
could-
how
I
that's
could
how I
be
read
too.
it.
We want you to hold your comments until we
Right.
get to that.
So that everybody's on the same page,
Right,
so
right,
that we're
we have
not,
the same information before we start making our comments.
but that you could be taken out of order by a vote of the town council if
Okay.
you have to leave or you're a town official, but your thing isn't coming up until later.
Okay.
I agree with that interpretation, but so when does like, let's say there is an agenda item. Where does it speak to where a citizen can,
It doesn't.
it doesn't, I didn't think it did either.
I'm not sure any of them have.
It
really
very well
said that.
may, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your question?
But if a
How
town
does-
council ran a meeting and didn't let people speak on stuff,
Yeah.
they'd be in
I
serious
guess my
trouble.
question was, it never speaks to how a citizen would attend a meeting and speak to an agenda item. And maybe none of these charters have, because I never thought of that issue until now, but but I don't recall ever reading anywhere where it says this is how, as a citizen, you participate in it.
So again, are they addressing the issue that they've experienced
Right.
as opposed to the issues that they don't experience, right? That it's never been a problem
Yeah.
to have somebody talk about an agenda item.
I mean, I don't know if our current charter even speaks to, a citizen coming to a Board of Selectmen meeting and, and speaking their mind.
I don't remember.
I think it's with an open
I don't
meeting
think it's-
law only.
Maybe it doesn't, yeah.
And even with an open meeting law, it's if a permitted,
Yeah.
it's not a requirement. So it goes so far as to say, the period is made available,
Right.
which seems to open the door, but then, anyways,
Maybe they can shut it.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say
Add it to the
anything.
list.
It doesn't seem to.
In any of them, I mean, I think they're all kind of silent on people coming to the meetings, and,
Yeah, I think so.
but I think maybe it's something that's handled on a bylaw level, I don't know.
Or even the rules of the council, because they can come up with their own sort of meeting
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah, it does say, I did look in here, it does say that the council will come up with rules of
Yeah.
council, whatever, and publish it on the website and all that.
Yep. 10% of the total voters is 1,986 under initiative petition. And I got down to.
Did you
so
say
the
10% was 10,000?
1,986, yeah. One of the things that I got to, reading through this, under actions on petitions, C. So you go through this whole process, and then within 30 days, it has to be returned to the clerk by the attorney, and then it goes to town council, which goes on to say, which shall act with respect to each initiative. And then 2 sentences later says, if at the expiration of the said 30 days, town council has not voted on such a petition, such an action shall be deemed a rejection of the petition. Which seems to indicate that they can choose to do nothing with it.
And not go on the record, but reject it anyway.
Yeah, which I just wrote, that's rude.
You get them to act by saying, if you don't act, it's automatically put on the ballot.
Yeah. Oh, clever. Yeah, and then it goes on to the supplementary petition, so that brings it up to almost 3,000 votes you need to get it to a vote. And then even when you vote, you need 20% of the registered voters
But you can't even get that to show up.
to vote on it, yeah. I gotta go,
I guess, so what happens if you don't get enough, that percentage, then it fails, obviously.
it, yeah,
You be at risk of that every single question.
Yeah, so you need to balance between you have elected officials who are supposed to be acting in the town's interest versus, allowing citizens to come up with their own bylaw suggestions or whatever. So you just have to find that balance. What is the right number of
Yeah, I do
signature
find it
support to
interesting
have
that they
to
say
get?
that knowing what they went through that recently, that they're saying that they think they could get 15% in 21 days.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, it took
That's a
them
lot.
about as long as it took us.
Right.
Yeah.
So, 3 months, that's not, and that wasn't just sitting on our hands for the whole time.
so
That was
it's
actively, so.
because I think we've seen very different sort of thresholds. So I think every town has sort of tried to figure out what that balance is.
Yeah, I guess they
There's
want,
probably not one size that fits all.
kind of want it to be challenging,
Yeah,
yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
but you want it to be doable
Yeah.
if your town council's not acting.
Yeah.
Right.
I think most of the towns have been very high hurdles for the most,
almost everything we've seen has been, I've thought.
yeah.
I thought there was an early one that
Yeah.
didn't
The
seem
one didn't, I
so,
agree, there was one that,
so
Yeah,
high,
there
but
was
I
like
can't
3 or
remember.
5% too on some.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because if you want a citizen's petition to pass, and it's circumventing the council, then you'd want to know that truly large portion of the citizenship
Yeah.
is on board
Is
with that.
motivated to go and vote for it
Yeah.
and support it.
I think it's more the time restriction, right? You can get 15% of the votes, but could you
Yeah.
actually do it in 21 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the time restrictions there, you've got to let the business has to keep going. You can't
Yeah, it
hold,
keeps
you
it
can't hold it
moving.
up forever.
Yeah, it's just
Yep.
21 days, I mean, just to organize, to get people to even go around and collect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Signatures will take you 21 days.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, same thing on a referendum
Yeah.
vote. You still need 20% to overturn it. They have the provision to submit to a vote any question town council can, under 8.6. Anything else within 8? Anything in 9?
I had just underlined, it's 9-1B4. And I guess I'll mention it because it came up to when Mrs. Stefanelli was here today, he was talking about that a little bit.
4.
For individual ones.
Yeah.
Receive health insurance, how that works.
Oh, yeah.
But this is expenses, though, right? Not salary or stipend, it's expenses. So I'm thinking that'd be more like if I needed to get something printed at Kinko's.
Yeah, 4 talks about if you're receiving any compensation for services, you're
Okay.
not eligible to participate in the health plan. I think Mrs. Stefanelli was talking about,
Oh, I was looking at, sorry,
Yeah.
BI.
yeah, in the past, someone, they would set a stipend for $100.
Yeah.
Like give them free healthcare.
And I think somebody else mentioned that. Didn't we, one of our invited
was
guests say that? Was it-
somebody.
Was it the?
Was it the town manager?
People said that, yeah.
Yeah.
And they-
Anyway, this is the first town council that doesn't receive compensation
Yep.
that we've read.
But yeah, it's an easy enough problem to fix. Like, they
Yeah.
got rid of the compensation because they didn't want to offer health care, but you couldn't just put that in to say you don't get health care.
You don't get
Yeah.
healthcare.
I know that Blackstone just did something similar to that, because it was, they had the same issue.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we'll still give you your stipend, but we're not giving you health care.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unless you want to pay 100%, like, it's still a discount.
I thought this is the first time we've seen a standing charter review committee, and I didn't understand the reason for it at first until I got to 9.2B12. So if a citizen petition comes up with respect to amending the charter, it gets referred to the charter review committee.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If they're the resident experts on the charter.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a bad idea. And they're the ones that'll do the periodic review of the committee, the
Right, because
Charter.
the other towns
review.
have just appointed them for those.
That purpose, yeah.
Review.
Anything else within 9? Anything within 10? Other than the lack of indentation, which is driving me nuts.
Sandy, do you know when the vote was taken? I'm wondering what, how much time was in this transitional period? Because between the
it was
actual
April.
vote versus July 2019.
I think it was
A little
April,
earlier
wasn't
than
it?
ours, yeah, but like a couple weeks earlier than ours.
Yeah.
It looks like the election of the town council in June of 19, it says here.
Oh,
town council was voted in, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Or when the charter was approved?
When the charter was.
The charter was approved in April.
Yeah.
The town council.
So then, so they didn't have the
Oh,
town council running at the same time the charter was, which is good, because you don't want people to do all that work if it's not going to be approved. Yeah, I was just wondering what the turnaround time was between changing the charter and actually installing a new government.
Is this the first one that we've seen that has had a specific transition committee formed?
I think so.
I didn't hate that idea.
No, it helps bridge the gap between what's in the charter versus what needs to get done.
Yeah, it's not as inundating. I like the makeup of it, too. It's got a set period of time that they have to work. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Let's see. Anything else anybody wants to bring up that wasn't on the agenda? Okay. Our next meeting is October 22nd, which again is a Tuesday. The next charter for review is Bridgewater. And that was selected because they are one of the towns that are going to be represented in the Mass Municipal Association's meeting that we're having on the 17th.
It's been decided that way. He doesn't want to come back.
Thank you.
So the thought was, instead of reviewing that charter at the next meeting, hold on to your questions and comments to discuss directly with the town representative from Bridgewater when they're in attendance.
And I'll try to get exactly who else is coming. I know Foxborough. I'll try to see if they have, because they had originally said they were trying to get all three forms of government
Okay.
representation, so I would imagine there's going to be another person.
Do we have 3 more meetings before they come, so we can assign one to each?
I think we only have, isn't it November 7th? I think we
Yeah,
have
it's
one
November
meeting.
7th, so.
So we've got the 22nd, the 4th. No, we're meeting on the 4th.
Oh, we are meeting on the
Oh.
4th, yeah.
So there's 2 more after this one. Okay.
I figured I'd just bring them to the next meeting if I
Okay.
have whatever I have, and then people can read them when they have a chance.
Okay.
Do we have a solid plan for town meeting? Do you want people to volunteer to, like, push the survey? Are we just putting it on the desk and leaving it there?
I don't know. What are our thoughts?
I think we need to have someone.
I have a problem
I feel
because
like-
I'm
I
a
feel
single
like,
parent
yeah.
at night.
Yeah, me too. And I have to pick up and drop off stuff. So I'm gonna be in and out, but.
Tell me again what the date, oh, it's the 21st.
I think it
feel
would
like
be
someone
great
at
if
least
one of
thought
us
to
could
answer
be there.
questions, maybe to give people.
So do we want that person there, standing outside and handing out the flyers as opposed to leaving them where they register? Or do we want, I guess I don't understand how do we advertise that we're there?
Well, don't we have the QR code too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So-
on the flyer.
On the flyer. I didn't know if we put it like on, I was thinking something like on an easel, that they could, just something to get their attention.
We're gonna try to catch
Be
them
at the registration
door,
and as they walk in the
They're
door.
already in.
I mean, I can't be there, but it'd probably be good to have some at the door, like hand them out, so people kind of come in.
Okay.
Like
Well,
they
usually when you sign in, all the little flyers are on the desk is kind of what I was thinking. But
Sometimes there's a
there are people
table-
are outside, I know, handing out, or doing various things, or collecting.
As I say, I do know that the stuff's all on the table, but I tend to white noise that stuff.
Okay, well, that's why we put the cute puppy on it.
I know.
So is there a table as you walk in? I feel like I've seen stuff like right in front of the door before
There
you get
has
to the
been, but it was like
registration.
the last time I was there, it was like you had to vote on the town center, so you got stickers and you put your sticker on which one you liked better. It was a specific
Gotcha.
committee that was there doing something.
So we would have to do that and
Yeah.
sort of have our little puppy blown up poster size and stand next to him and.
Yeah. Hey, come talk about this cute dog. Suck them all in.
Oh.
They're allowing us to put them inside, right? So would they allow us to hand them out inside too, correct or no?
I don't see why not, as long as we're not harassing anybody.
Might be able to hand them all the warrant.
I was gonna say, so I don't know if this is outside the bounds of what we can do at town meeting, but can we ask the moderator to just announce at the beginning of the meeting, like, there's a flyer with a questionnaire for,
I think it doesn't hurt to ask, right? You could also post on social media or try to get the word out that surveys will be available if you see us with a cute puppy.
Or we get a Peter channel.
Right.
Yeah.
Or on the Peter channel.
And I can certainly be available to pass them out. I think, I kind of like the idea of catching them before they go into and some on the table
Right.
that's there, but I
That's-
like the idea of kind of having just a few seconds dialogue. This is what it is. Have you taken it?
Right.
Yep.
Very easy to do.
Please fill it out.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm happy to stand
Yeah, I'll be there.
guard.
I can definitely be there.
I
at the
can harass
beginning.
people. I'm
I can
good at
bring
that.
my kids too, and they can harass people.
Kids are cute.
Yeah.
What time does it start? 7?
Sounds
Town
right.
meeting?
Sounds right.
How far in advance do we want to get there? Probably not much more than I can't see too many people getting there, much more than a half an hour in advance.
Yeah.
Okay. So we could, so do we still leave the flyers at the desk as well? So
I
we're
would
gonna
think
need
so,
more
yeah.
flyers.
Okay, I say we just do every avenue we can.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
all right, I'll
I
print
like the
one.
idea of advertising too. We're gonna be there.
Yeah, and I'm happy to slice them up.
Okay. All right, I'll make some more.
and
I'm gonna make a note.
I think coordinating is perfectly okay outside of meeting, open meeting.
More flyers. Okay. For the next meeting, so we talked about the Bridgewater Charter, and they're coming up for the MMA. For the next meeting, a suggestion was made that perhaps we start to compile all of our ideas and suggestions that have been, we've been individually tracking based on our reading and our interviews and our discussions, so that we can determine what other information we may need in order to start making some decisions and having some discussions. Is there any thoughts on this?
So are you saying like the next meeting, like collectively talking about like what the
Yeah,
common
it's-
themes are that we're hearing?
Maybe, yeah,
Kind of thing.
instead of looking at, going through another charter,
Right.
pull that for the MMA meeting, and let's start talking about, some things that we've been collecting along the way individually, and maybe compile them to a single list.
Sort of what we've heard and what we think we need to hear to,
Yeah,
Start
so
making some
things that we've
decisions.
looked at that we may want to, ideas, suggestions that investigate further and decide if we're going to need more information before we get into the discussions of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have your list, Jane's list of issues that you're compiling. So maybe we start with a list of, I think we had said when we started reading the charters. you know, start keeping track of things, ideas, suggestions, things we wanted to incorporate. So I think just starting to compile those would be helpful to kind of see, okay, do we want to do some more research on an engineer or DPW, whatever it happens to be.
So should we,
It also could
should
help-
we each be coming with a list of what we are getting out of it? I guess, I'm just not sure I should come prepared for.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my thought is thoughts on it and what's the best way of facilitating it? Do we want to, everybody bring their individual things that they've kind of been tracking as they've been going along and do kind of a data dump at the next meeting? See
Or
where we
does
have
someone
some,
wanna compile it beforehand?
Compiling one,
creating a single,
yeah.
Would it be easier to compile beforehand? Like to have everybody send to, I mean, I don't mind doing it, send email, this is my list, and then compile and we can see them all together? And take out duplicates? Or
I like
we-
the idea of doing it together.
Okay.
As opposed to an email, but that's my opinion. We can vote on it and however anybody wants to do it. I like the idea of doing it together verbally and compiling it together verbally.
Like, I'm not prepared to make any decisions about like what I would vote on for a new charter.
I don't think that's necessarily the issue, is like, we're hearing all these issues, right, and we're compiling that. What are all the different recommendations that we've been hearing as well? Because I know there are certain, we want to really be done gathering information by the end of December.
Yes.
And personally, I feel like there are some things I want to look into more. Other people maybe we want to talk to, or, you know, go out to see.
Yeah.
But we can't do that if we're not all on the same page of
so
what
for example,
areas
if
we're in.
we all wound up having a DPW on our list, okay, that's great, but we're gonna need to gather a lot more. We're gonna need to do a little bit more digging into, you know, meeting with other people, maybe bringing in, you know, people from another town. Yeah.
So I feel
how
like
we're
that's a
getting-
lot more detailed than I'm ready. You know what I mean? Like, because if we decide, like, that's deciding a department, and are we at that stage yet where we're deciding like what
I
it
don't
is we
think we're
want to
deciding, I
see?
think we're talking about what we've heard for suggestions.
Yeah.
And we're putting those together so that we can do more research on those before we decide.
Do we have
right?
enough information to make those decisions?
But I guess I don't know that that's subjective for each one of us, right? We're all hearing the same information, and we've kind of collected it in the way of meeting minutes and feedback from, like, I think we've already kind of collected it, right? It's just kind of talking about what we've gathered.
Yeah, so for example, when we were talking about going through the charters individually, and I think a question was raised a few weeks back about, you know, what are we doing with these? And we determined that everybody individually was kind of keeping track of, you know, things that they have pointed out that we may want to investigate at some point.
I think we're getting a lot of feedback once we start reviewing the charter anyways. People are gonna start, they're either gonna like what we're talking about, or they're not gonna like it, and I think that's when you're gonna see a lot more feedback. Because right now, we're just interviewing people.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're really not feeling.
They don't
it
know what
out.
we're doing, yeah.
But once we start getting into it, I think that's when you're really gonna see a lot of,
More engagement.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I guess my big concern is in January, are we gonna be ready to start making votes? And what do we need to do between now and then to make sure we're ready to vote on decisions? Because I don't think we have time at that point to gather any more information.
Okay.
So at some point, we need to start coming up with a plan, I guess.
Oh, I agree.
right? And maybe
That too.
prioritizing what are the things we need to start with looking at, you know, if there's gonna be an order that's gonna make sense.
review our charter. Start looking at it a little bit. You know, I've been down there a lot, going over it, and it didn't make sense at first, you know?
Yeah. Definitely catch a lot more.
Yeah.
I also think that might be a good idea, is to reread the Norton Charter. It's the one we started with, but even now, they are all kind of blending together, and I don't remember specifically what's in ours versus somebody else's with regards to specifics.
So then does it make sense to compile our list and not necessarily compile it collectively, but to share our lists ahead of the next meeting so that at the next meeting we're ready to talk about it versus like, and we have an idea of what other people have compiled. I don't know. I'm trying to pick a happy medium, like
Yeah, so I guess I'm still
being
confused.
prepared.
Is the list, like, these are some things that I liked about these different charters that we should think about?
See,
Or
that-
is the list, I think we need to learn more about this particular area?
I think it's kind of everything. I think it's like what, you know, you can even compile 2 lists, but like what we've heard, what we need to look at more, maybe what needs to be investigated or studied a little bit more. Like, I understand what you're saying, because I feel like if we do need to look at something more, I understand what you're saying in terms of a time frame, but also if someone is going to look into something in, you know, November, I think it helps with the issue of transparency too. We have a list and who's going to do what and who's going to look at something a little bit more if we need to, request some paperwork or documents or something somewhere.
So do we want to just start with that specific sort of idea of maybe we don't list every single thing we want to, every single suggestion or change or you know, addition, but maybe we look and we look at what we've been compiling for notes ourselves and say, what areas do we need to do some more research in?
Yeah,
And have that conversation?
Yeah, I just think we need to narrow it down and say, okay, what have we heard so far from all these interviews that we need to look at more in terms of changing. So it might not necessarily be, I like, you know, this in this charter or this in this charter, but it might be a way to start with just one goal and one list.
I'll take a stab at it. I'm not sure I'm still completely clear on what it is I'm doing, but I will go back through my notes and figure out what I've been hearing.
I still don't like the idea of emailing. I still think it needs to be a discussion from start to finish between all of us. That's my opinion.
I agree. I think we need to be very clear what we're discussing so we don't get off the guardrails though and discuss too early things that we should be discussing in January. That's the only one.
Yeah, like
Well, and I think
I'm
we can-
so not in a place where, like, to say, oh, I definitely want this, like, I'm not there yet.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But I think we are at a place where we've heard so much that we know what we want to look at a little bit more, right? Is my opinion.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking, I know what the common themes have been, but I don't know that I necessarily can think of anything that I need to learn more about those things.
Well, I mean, every single time we look at a charter, someone will say something like, oh, I want to talk to this town and learn more about this. It would be good to hear from this town what this, you know, I think we've heard that a lot of different
Like why they
comments.
put that in?
I mean, yeah, or, you know, could we talk to a DPW director in a different town? And again, I don't think it's necessarily inviting them in because we're pretty much booked at this point, right? So at this point, if we want to get any more information about other towns and what they're doing, we're going to have to go
We could
out
do a
and that.
subcommittee or whatever.
Right, and this way we're all on the same page, and if I want to go talk to, you know, town manager from whatever, we can not necessarily duplicate efforts.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, like I mentioned today, like the part about where it was clear the town council couldn't make any changes to the appointments of town manager. Well, I think it's an interesting point. I don't know that I necessarily care or need to know why they put it in there, because we need to think about, does it make sense for us? Do we care about having that in Norton?
Right.
So I don't really, I mean, I guess we could ask the question out of just morbid curiosity, but it doesn't really matter to me.
Right. But that's I think, a different example than, you know, again, some of the other issues that we've said, we really need some more information, we really need to delve into this a little bit more.
Yeah.
And find out why towns do this, or what, you know, how it's working in other towns. I mean, unless you feel like we have all the information we need at this point, I feel like I don't, that's my, I guess.
I was gonna say, so I don't think I have any questions, so mine might just be a blank piece of paper.
Well, that's fine,
But
you know, I think that's
you
fine.
might, when you go through your things, and they don't even really necessarily have to be questions. I mean, you might say, you know, gee, you know, the town moderator should not be appointing all of FinCom. Like, that might be an issue or a question. Not even a question, but that may be an issue that you feel like we need to look at more. And that just came off the top.
Or can someone research, you know, all the
Well, the
different
towns,
ways
yes.
that towns appoint
Right.
a finance committee.
Yeah, correct.
And maybe that could be someone's task, so we can come back.
I'm clearer now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, I think we should talk about what it is.
Need to be very focused in the.
We need
careful
to
about the
ask
roles.
questions, whether it's sending an email to Foxborough saying,
I think when we have the
Why'd you
discussion
do
next
this?
meeting, just make sure we don't get off the guardrails.
Yeah.
Too soon.
No, I agree. I don't want it to veer into a discussion of like, who wants to change the form of government, who does, like, I don't want to do that just yet.
So at this point, we're going to go back and identify areas where we personally feel we need more information to make decisions down the road. And how we go, and we'll discuss in the next meeting how we go about getting that information.
Sounds good.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think I got it now.
I think so.
Sorry. I was a little slow there.
And I think,
No, we kind of went around in circles.
I think all our lists are going to be very similar, too.
I think you're right.
It's
We've
just
heard
a
a lot of
matter
similar
of
things
where we're
from-
placing them, and I think we're going to see a lot of similarities.
I think you're right, Jamie.
Okay. Action. Is that rain?
Got my umbrella.
Do we have any action items?
Has this happened like the majority of our meetings?
Seems like a lot, yeah.
Sit down.
It's a recurring theme.
Leave.
Sandy, do we have any action items this week?
I didn't hear any,
The list.
Which list?
The list that we're.
Oh, yeah.
just that we come.
Everybody's so we should, okay, so
And that's the next meeting on, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be confusing.
That's
in
okay.
October.
the 22nd,
It's October 7th already. Okay, so the 22nd is when.
which is
we're
the
doing-
Tuesday, not the
Okay,
Monday.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
got it.
Okay.
Are we, so we are not looking at the next charter for that meeting, or are we?
You don't have to come prepared to the next meeting with Bridgewater, but
Okay.
you should read it in advance of the November 7th.
For the November 7th. Got
Yeah.
it.
So we have that. We'll have town meeting before then, so I will stand outside with flyers.
I'll be there.
Okay, so we've got 3 people that'll can cover.
That's a Monday, right?
That is the
yeah,
Monday,
so
the
I can-
21st.
I can come too.
Okay. So we'll just do two teams of 2.
And with, so I have a copy of this. Does anybody object to me taking it with me if I'm somewhere?
No, but that, you might have the old one. I think
Okay.
that's the old QR code. That one
Okay.
expired.
All right.
Take a new one, please.
Because I can make some copies and
Yeah.
take them to soccer or wherever.
Does it
If I s-
automatically expire after a certain length?
Yeah, so the one that I tested it
Wanna
on
make sure nobody
did, but my husband just said, oh, use QR Monkey and it's yours forever.
Okay.
So the one I have now does. Janie, did you say you wanted to print some? 'Cause
Yeah.
I can get you the PDF. You want me to just email you that?
No, I'll just print from this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, is the PDF on the Dropbox anyway?
No.
Okay.
I could put it there.
Yeah, just put
But
it.
it's so there's 2 of them together.
Okay.
All right, so I'll put the flyer on Dropbox. I need to make you more copies. And I think that was it. Somebody should email Dave and Kevin and tell them what our task is for the next meeting. Do that. Okay. Anything else anybody needs to talk about? I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.